All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I've got Johnny B with me again. We're going to be doing our failed prophecy series. Um, there's a lot of people streaming today. I noticed some people are off schedule, so they've decided to throw up a video today. There's a couple guys streaming right now. Actually, I was on their lives earlier before I came here. So I don't know what our audience will be like today. We'll have to just play it and see. But anybody can check out these videos. They're posted. I've got them in a playlist for anybody who's interested in checking out the other ones that we've done. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started here. First of all, this one's going to be about Micah 5:2, the prophecy about the Messiah supposedly coming out of Bethlehem. Johnny B, this is his series. He's really doing most of the legwork on this.
No.
And he's done a great job so far. And his presentation's gotten better and better each time. He's got a PowerPoint presentation he's going to go through this time, which I'm really excited about. It just helps keep things linear. We'll talk a little bit about the history, what's going on. But before we get started with that, I want to take just a quick minute and thank everybody who's been supporting the channel. Our channel's growing steadily. We're over 150 subs now, which is absolutely amazing. Almost 13,000 views on the videos. Really pleased with the interaction we've been getting. Shocked as well, pleasantly surprised. But that's just really I just owe a great deal of gratitude to every single one of you guys who support this channel, because it's really about you guys. It's about bringing people together to share different ideas, to have respectful disagreements, maybe learn something from each other. So I really appreciate all the interaction. And there is a treat for you guys tomorrow night. I noticed when I was getting myself together this morning, I got a notification that Joe from the Kentucky Atheist is going to be hosting Mark Reed on his channel tomorrow night. So both those guys are guys that I follow from the atheist community. Really nice guys. Both of them are very smart. And so that's going to be a really good show. So I will be sure to put a link to that show in this description, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with today's show, just because I'm mentioning it now. But yeah, tomorrow night, I believe on the West Coast, it's 6 p.m. start time, if I saw that correctly. So it'll be 9 p.m. Eastern. But check out the Kentucky Atheist if you want to see him and Mark Reed talking. That I guarantee that'll be a good show. So for today, we're talking about one of the prophecies coming out of this is out of Micah. And I know that Micah was written, according to scholars anywhere, they say that Micah was written within 20 years of when Assyria had actually besieged Israel. And so, they were in conflict for quite some time. And then, Assyria eventually conquers Israel, drives the inhabitants of Israel down into Judah, and also spread them out all over what was the Assyrian kingdom and what would eventually become the Neo-Babylonian kingdom. So this is a very, very much in line with the period of history, what we talked about in one of the previous videos we'd done with the virgin birth narrative, right? So this is a lot of the prophets. These books were written within a 200-year period, basically between the Assyrian Empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and the Persian period. Right. So a lot of this is covered in that historical period. A big chunk of the Old Testament covers all that. So historically, that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to turn this over to Johnny B, and he's going to go through this PowerPoint presentation. After he's done, as always, I open up the panel for anybody who wants to come on. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so my throat's still a little scratchy. For anybody who wants to come on and join the conversation, we could talk about this. If you guys have other topics you want to bring up, I try to basically turn this over to you guys, to the audience. This is a platform for everybody. So if there's something in particular you want to discuss, happy to do that. Anybody who wants to talk about objective morality, I'm no longer keeping anything hidden for my debate, because I did have my debate with Mark. So I'm happy to give my full argument for that if people want to discuss that. So let me go ahead, Johnny B. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience, and then we can get started. I'll bring up the PowerPoint presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Johnny. I'd like to thank Objective for having me again. I really enjoyed our failed prophecies. I really enjoy our failed prophecy series. So today we're just going to be going over Micah 5:2. So Christians will often claim that Micah 5:2 is about Jesus being born in Bethlehem, and the New Testament author, the author of the Gospel of Matthew, says this as well. Next page, please. The author of Matthew claims Micah 5:2 is about Jesus. And wait, can I get my screen bigger? Okay, there we go. I figured it out. Okay. In Matthew 2, 1-6, the author is making the claim that Magi from the east came to King Herod telling him about a newborn Messiah. And when he inquires them about where the Messiah was supposed to be born, they tell him that the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem, according to Micah 5:2, and they quote it. He's trying to tie Micah 5:2 to Jesus' birth, since Jesus was born in Bethlehem, according to the story. And so Micah 5:2 reads, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, where is the child who has been... I'm sorry, not Micah 5:2. Matthew 2, 1-6 says, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage. When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to be shepherd to my people. Now, if we go to the next slide, that's actually not what it says. So the problem is that the author of Matthew is reading out of the Greek Septuagint. So his quotation really isn't going to line up with the Hebrew text, because around the 2nd century, people started to realize that the Septuagint really isn't that word for word. It's kind of loose on the translations in some of the chapters. So what Micah 5:2 actually says in the Old Testament is, but you, O Bethlehem of Ephrathah, who are one of the little clans of Judah, from you shall come forth from me one who is to rule in Israel, whose origin is from old, from ancient days. Next page, please. So this isn't about a birthplace at all. This is about a ruler being born from the clan of Bethlehem of Ephrathah, which is referring to the clan of the Ephrathites of Bethlehem, who are the oldest known ancestors of King David. We learn in 1 Samuel 17:12 that King David's father was an Ephrathite of Bethlehem named Jesse. 1 Samuel 17:12. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons in the days of Saul. The man was already old and advanced in years. So this is specifically about a messianic ruler coming from the house of David. Next page, please. So the Messiah must come from David through Solomon. So the Messiah is supposed to come from the house of David, and both of Jesus' genealogies attempt to trace him back to David, but this fails. First, the Davidic Messianic covenant goes through Solomon, according to 1 Chronicles 22, 9-10. Solomon's lineage is to rule forever. 1 Chronicles 22, 9-10 says, see, a son shall be born to you. He shall be a man of rest. I will give him rest from all of his enemies on every side. Indeed, his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quiet to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name. Shall be a son to me, and I will be a father to him, and I will establish his royal throne in Israel forever. Next page, please. Jesus' genealogy in Matthew 1 goes through Jeconiah. So although the genealogy for Jesus found in Matthew 1 does go through Solomon, there is a really big problem with it. It goes through Jeconiah. And Matthew 1, 12-16, where it gives the genealogy, says, and after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiud, and Abiud the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Akim, and Akim the father of Eliud, and Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, who bore Jesus, who is called the Messiah. Now, if you count that there, it says he comes through Jeconiah. Jeconiah was cursed. If we go to the next page, please. Why is going through Jeconiah a problem? Well, according to Jeremiah 22:30, Jeconiah was cursed that none of his descendants would ever succeed in sitting on the throne of David or ruling in Judah again. Jeremiah 22:30. Thus says the Lord, record this man as childless, a man who shall not succeed in his days, for none of his offspring shall succeed in sitting on the throne of David and ruling again in Judah. So Jesus' genealogy in Matthew 1 disqualifies him from being the Messiah. Next page, please. What does Jesus' genealogy in Luke 3 say? Now, first, it's important to note that Jesus' genealogy found in Luke 3 is not through Mary. That's a later Christian apologetic that doesn't fix anything and isn't even supported by the text. I was talking about this earlier. I didn't write it down, but according to Luke, Mary was related to Elizabeth. She was a cousin of Elizabeth, which means she is a Levite. It's just that Jesus' genealogy in Luke 3 is just contradicting. It's just a contradicting genealogy for his father's side of the family. Luke 3:23 says Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his work. He was the son, as was thought, of Joseph, son of Heli. Next page, please. So the main problem with Jesus' genealogy in Luke 3 is, besides the fact that it goes through, that it contradicts Matthew 1's genealogy for Jesus, that's not the main problem. The main problem is that it goes through Nathan, not Solomon. Luke 3:31 says, son of Melech, son of Menah, son of Methatha, son of Nathan, son of David. So this is just another of David's sons. This isn't Solomon. This genealogy doesn't go through Solomon. It goes through Nathan. I already said that. So this also disqualifies Jesus as being the Messiah. Next page, please. Conclusion. Going over what Micah 5:2 says in a more accurate translation than a source the author of Matthew was using, and going over what another part of the Bible says about the Messiah, as well as showing how Jesus isn't eligible to be the Messiah per his genealogies, I believe we have accurately demonstrated that the author of Matthew was mistaken. Jesus did not fulfill Micah 5:2 by being born in Bethlehem, and Micah 5:2 is actually about a ruler of Davidic origins, and that's it.
Yeah, that was pretty clear and concise. We almost went through that too fast. That was a lot of information. Almost wonder if we should go through it again. That was there's a lot there to unpack. The biggest thing is you can look in at verses 5 and 6, and it really gives you the actual context of what's going on there. This is about something that's happening with Assyria, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this, right? That this 5 through 6 explicitly states that this ruler will deliver Israel from the Assyrians, right? Which was happening during Micah's time, as I mentioned, in the mid to late part of the 8th century before the Common Era. This was not about something that's going to happen centuries later. And we also know that Israel never did defeat the Assyrians, right? It went the other way around. Assyria has actually wiped out Israel. And then later on, the Assyrians were conquered by the Neo-Babylonians, and of course with the Medes, when the Babylonians and the Medes were working together before the Medes and Persians were working together. And in fact, that battle of the final kingdom of the Assyrians, I believe, was the battle at Nineveh, if I remember correctly. So,
I think so.
Israel, not only was it not related to Jesus, it didn't come true. The whole thing didn't come true because, so that's why Christians tend to want to push these prophecies out. One of the things that I've heard on other channels that really get into counter apologetics with Christians is Christians will cite a few of these prophecies as fulfilled prophecies and say, well, Jesus is going to be a king, so that's a fulfilled prophecy. And it's like, well, technically, if it hasn't happened yet, it cannot be considered a fulfilled prophecy, right? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. So, Deconverted Man in the chat. Deconverted Man, I don't want to distract too much, but while I've got you here, because I know sometimes you pop in and out. First of all, it's always great to see you. I sent you, or maybe I'm in the middle of writing you an email right now. I just have it in a draft, but I'm going to send you an email today about that song that you sent to me. That song is absolutely epic. You've inspired me to try to force myself to wedge out some time, which I really don't have much time with my new work schedule. But I'm trying to put together, I haven't decided if I'm going to do an intro or an outro, or eventually maybe do both. But I definitely want to incorporate that song into the channel. But I had a couple questions about that specifically. So I am going to be sending you an email. So keep your eyes open for that. And we'll talk about that coming up. But yeah, I did start working on actually doing like I said, I don't know if I'll make it an intro or an outro. But there's so much stuff that you can do, creative stuff that you can do, that's not that difficult. The biggest problem is time. I just don't have time since I took on that new role. I took on by the owner of the restaurant where I'm at has left out of town to take care of personal stuff. So that leaves me in charge of everything. And there's so much drama with these girls at work. They just always fighting with each other, and on top of running a business already. So I've got a lot on my plate to deal with, but it is something that I think will help the channel be a little bit more professional. And it's fun. I don't mind the creative side of it. It's kind of fun to do. But yeah, that song I want to incorporate into that somehow. So do keep an eye out for that. But anyway, sorry, Johnny, I didn't mean to distract. I just want to catch D-Man
No,
while he's in here because, like I said, sometimes he pops in and out really quick.
you're all
But
good, my man. And adding
yeah,
on to,
go ahead.
and adding on to what you said, yeah. So what Christians tend to do is first, yeah, they will say that like if a prophecy, and this isn't just Christians, this was early Jewish people as well, is when a prophecy didn't come true, well, they would just push it further. They would just push it a little bit further and say, actually, no, it was actually supposed to happen a little bit further. We just, people just made a mistake. They didn't read it right. But we can look at the context now and we can see when it was supposed to happen. And because they didn't want their God to be, they couldn't accept the fact that their God was wrong about something, they just kept pushing it. And Christians do this too. When a prophecy in the Hebrew Bible doesn't come true, Christians will just say, well, Jesus already fulfilled it. It's already fulfilled in Jesus. But you're right. Like, Jesus isn't a king. He was never a king. He was never a king for one moment. In Israel, they mocked him because he wasn't a king. While he was on the cross, the Romans called him King of the Jews and put a crown of thorns on his head because he wasn't. They were mocking him because he wasn't who he said he was. And he was never king for a second. And Christians have to counter this by saying, well, eventually he's going to sit on the throne. Eventually he's going to sit on the throne. And I'm like, well, that means he didn't do it yet. So it's not fulfilled yet if he didn't do it. I don't accept partial fulfillments because anybody can partially fulfill a prophecy. If you've ever ridden a donkey before, you fulfilled Zechariah 9. I mean, that you could call that a partial fulfillment. If you've just ridden a donkey, you could call that a partial fulfillment to Zechariah 9. Like, partial fulfillments just don't work.
You got to ride 2 donkeys, don't you?
Well, that's kind of the author of Matthew's mistake there. But yeah, I mean, like, anybody can, a lot of these prophecies, anybody can fulfill one part of them. It's the whole thing that actually matters, because what Christians leave out, and the New Testament authors left this out too, is that in verse 10, it says that this king is going to then wipe out all of Israel's enemies. He's going to end the means of war. He's going to end war and then rule on the throne over his people. And Jesus never did any of that. They just conveniently left that part out. But yeah, I mean, so that's exactly how it is. As Christians will just push things further. They'll just say, well, he didn't do it yet, but he's going to do it. And that doesn't help any, because then they're admitting that he didn't do it.
One of the things that Johnny and I were talking about backstage before we went live today, it kind of relates to this here. Excuse me. I actually have a lot of sympathy for religious people, because I see this incredible cognitive dissonance that they're just not able to accept reality, to accept the reality that they have been believing something that not only isn't true, but is so nonsensical. And that's got to be a difficult pill to swallow. I totally understand that. And that's why I have so much respect for people who get out of these religions at an older age, because I've got several friends who are much older than I am even, and they've been raised in this religion ever since they were babies. I've got a buddy of mine who's in his 70s now, and he has literally told me that he doesn't care if there's any evidence out there whatsoever that would refute his beliefs. Nothing can change his mind. And when somebody says they don't care about the evidence, that they're not even willing to consider it, that they know without even seeing the evidence that their mind cannot be changed. And I know it would be absolutely devastating to him to find out that everything he's been preaching about and telling people about, is wrong. Now, part of the problem with that, and what does frustrate me, is that it's not only do you have to admit that you were wrong, but then you have to look back at all the times in your life when you were criticizing somebody because they were gay and you told them they're going to go to hell, or criticizing somebody because they were a Muslim and they're going to go to hell because they don't worship Jesus. I mean, some of the really nasty, mean things that people do in defense of this religion because they're convinced it's true. once you have to swallow the admit that it's not true, then you have to go back and look at the actions and the words in your life and admit that you are just a horrible fucking gross person, is what it really comes down to. And nobody wants to do that, right? So
And,
that is a problem.
and it's never too late. You can always, if you're a Christian, or if you were a Christian and you had these views, you know, uh, you can always leave these views behind. You can always deconstruct those beliefs. You can always deconstruct the beliefs that gay people are wrong for being gay, or that Muslims are just wrong because they don't believe in your God, or any of these other bigoted beliefs. You could just deconstruct those. It's it's hard. It is a hard process, but it can be done, and it'll make you a better person. And ultimately, it takes religion to make good people into bad people, because although a lot of people obviously there's always going to be bad people in religion anyways, but it takes religion to make a good person, defend and do bad things. So it's never too late to deconstruct those beliefs. You can always turn it around. So
Yeah, I think that that is where I try to start with people, because I don't try to actively deconvert people. I've said this many times on this channel. I respect people's right, for one thing, to believe what they want to believe, and I also have seen throughout the things that I've gone through in life, overcoming drugs and alcohol, getting out of the prison system, and all these other things that I had to put myself through and get myself out of. A lot of people that were doing that work used religion as the to get strength, or as the motivation, or whatever you want to say. I didn't need to do it. I didn't have any religious beliefs. I did it without all that. But if people need that, then that I don't want to take that away from them, because I fear that they might go back into some really bad habits and stuff that they try to get themselves out of. But I do actively try to convince people that these immoral things like bigotry, this is problematic, and this actually goes against what we know about things like justice and morality and fairness, right? What is it called? Reciprocity, right? We want people to let us hold our beliefs, right? We want people to let us live a free life. We should be willing to do that to others, just on the basis of fairness alone. And so that's the stuff that I do try to really work on with people, is the way that the relationships they hold with other human beings. If you want to believe that you're going to go to heaven afterwards, and all dogs go to heaven, and that makes you sleep better at night, hey, no problem, whatever helps you out. But if that belief requires you to say that two men have no right to get married, or two women have no right to get married, or a man can't be a woman, or whatever the fucking shit they're saying, that's when it becomes problematic. And we've seen how religion has promoted bigotry. I mean, the North Atlantic slave trade is a perfect example of how Christianity was used to justify one of the worst periods in global history, in my opinion. Not just American history, but I mean, that was horrific. And it was happening on a mass scale, right? And it was being justified and promoted by people who believed in Christianity and used Christianity to prop that whole system up. So it's been very unhealthy and very immoral in the way that it causes people to react.
Yeah, I mean, like, some of the worst atrocities have been defended with a religion. I mean, after the Christians gained just a little bit of power, and they actually made it like a state religion in Rome, in Rome, like, they went around killing non-Christians and even forcefully baptizing people. I think they started off forcefully baptizing people, and then started killing people who didn't believe the same things they believed. And a lot of religions spread the same way. But those are things that the religion has caused, and people defend it because it's what they were doing. Or slavery, like the Bible says slavery is okay, and people have used that to say that in the the Southern Baptist Church used that to say, yeah, slavery's fine because the Bible says it's fine. But, like, some of the worst atrocities have been defended using religion, and just some of these things, like Christianity, for example, has been used to defend slavery. So I mean, it's some pretty bad stuff.
Yeah, I've heard the argument several times that the fact that Christianity, and I've heard it for Christianity and Islam both, that these two religions have spread so quickly or spread so prevalently is somehow evidence of the truth claim. And yet, if you actually look at the history of it all, it was spread by violence. and that is evidence of the exact opposite. If it was true, you could, you should have been able to spread this message peacefully, and the God, if this is really this powerful God, should have been able to give a convincing enough message and have a convincing enough history that's verifiable that people would be running to this religion, you know what I mean, seeking it out. But instead, it was being forced on people, and anybody who didn't toe the line was literally killed or executed in horrific ways. And I mean, they even did it within the religion. The Catholics versus the Protestants, they were burning each other at the stake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, holy fuck.
Oh, deconverted man, you want to know the name of the ruler that the prophecy was about? I'm actually not sure who the ruler was actually supposed to be.
They think it might potentially be Zerubbabel.
Okay, I mean, it could be. I could see that. Yeah. It just all I know is that it talks about a Davidic ruler coming from the house of David, and it's around that time period is when this was supposed to happen. So I mean, it just never happened the way it was supposed to happen. But that's interesting. I've never heard of that it was Zerubbabel before, but I'll look into that. So
that's the only name. That's the only actual name, specific name that I've heard attached to this. Now they say it could be, as you mentioned, any successor from the seed of David, right? Any successor, but the only specific name would have been Zerubbabel that I've heard anyway mentioned, and he was alive, in the context of this period, so that would make sense. And we know that this was definitely written for the period. This was not some distant future prophecy that's supposed to happen centuries later. It doesn't read like that. That takes it way out of context. It doesn't even make sense to try and attach that to this. Very much like when we talked about the virgin birth, trying to take that and say, well, this is a prophecy that's supposed to happen 500 years later. That literally makes no sense if you actually read the context of the passage itself,
Yeah. Deconverted man. So a prophecy would be where a prophet says something is going to happen, and this information is supposedly coming from God, and the prophet says these are things that are going to happen. An example of what a prophecy is not is Psalm 22, where it's describing somebody's suffering. It's describing the suffering of King David. That's not a prophecy. It's a lament. It's just a sad song by King David. It's a lament of his own struggles. And like Isaiah 53, parts of it are for the future and parts of it are not. Like, for example, in Isaiah 53, the suffering of the servant has already happened. It's described as already happening. He was wounded, so that's already happened. But then it talks about the redemption of talks about like the redemption of Israel, which is in the future. So a prophecy is where a prophet gives you information about the future.
By definition, a prophet is someone who speaks on behalf of the particular deity, the particular God, right? So in this case, a prophet would be somebody who speaks on behalf of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And to find out if it's a prophecy about something that's happening imminently or happening down a distant time in the future, you simply just have to read the context of what's being written itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wait, what did you?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know the person is a prophet, though? Well, because I mean, obviously, I don't think these people were actually prophets. We don't think these people were actually prophets. We're just saying that's how the Bible says they are. It says that they're prophets.
Yeah, exactly. So it would need to say something like the Lord spoke through the prophet Isaiah, or the prophet Isaiah himself might be talking, saying, this is what the Lord saith, type of a thing. But you need to, again, the definition of prophet is somebody who is speaking on behalf of the God, whatever God it might be. That makes them a prophet. And a prophecy is then speaking about a particular event, and that event could actually even be something from the past, right? It doesn't have to be a current event or a future event. They could actually be describing something from the past if the God wants to give updated information or clarification or whatever it might be. So the prophet, there isn't a specific timeline. It could be past, present, or future for a prophecy. However, you need to read the context itself. And so when things are really vague, then you could just attach any context you want to out of it. But it's not, there really aren't, that I can think of anyway off the top of my head. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar, and it's been many years since I really studied this stuff in college. But from what I remember, there aren't any really vague prophecies. Now, there are some that are get a little bit kind of allegorical sounding, or they will use like kind of allegorical language, like a fig tree or a lion or something, metaphorical language, I should say. So it does make it kind of difficult to translate the context itself, but you could usually get the timeline pretty easily. This as far as when it would happen in the past, or is it happening imminently, or is it happening some distance down in the future? That's pretty easy to figure out.
A deconverted man wants to know what the link to join is.
Oh yeah, I'd love to get you guys in here. So let me go ahead and put this in the chat. Okay. And then again, you guys, we could talk about anything that you guys want to, because I do consider these open panels on Sundays to really be, for everybody. It's not just whatever I'm talking about. Now, when I have a featured guest, obviously we allot a certain amount of time to let the guests make their presentation or whatever. But other than that, in fact, let me open this up.
Robin, so Revelation features a thing about the Euphrates River drying up. But the Euphrates River has been going through a cycle of drying up and been refilling for a very long time. So it's not even really a prophecy per se. Like it's not new information. People already knew that was happening. It's just and Revelation in itself is just a failed prophetic book for the first century. It's supposed to happen between the first and the second century, and it just never happened. Not only was Jesus' second coming supposed to happen during the lifetime of his disciples, but the book itself also says at the beginning that these are things that have shortly come to pass. So these things were supposed to happen during that time period. They just didn't. They just didn't come true. And so then Christians had to, ignore those parts and come up with the nonsense about, 1,000 years a day is 1,000 years to God or something like that, But that's not what the book's actually supposed to be about. It was supposed to happen during the first and second century.
Yeah, there is. I've actually got a young man who's scheduled to be on this channel. I think we've got mid-March is when we set that up. I'm already booking dates out into I'm already booked through the end of March already. I'm really pleased that people wanting to interact with the channel like that. And one of the guests I've got scheduled to come on, his name is Tristan Gabriel. He graduated from seminary, and he was a full preterist. And so now that he's an agnostic, he really hammers down on just what a gross denomination. I couldn't come up with the word. Gross denomination full preterism actually is, and there's just some really, really dark things that it teaches, and that is one of their things is that when the temple was destroyed in 70 of the Common Era, that this was actually the sign of that Jesus had come at that point. So people are reading back into the text. They really focus on really bad interpretation, a bad hermeneutic of Daniel 9. And people are reading all kinds of weird stuff into the Old Testament. It's called Pesher, I believe is how that's said. So basically, you go look at an old prophecy, it either likely wasn't fulfilled, and so then you reinterpret it. And we see this happening in cults, like the Heaven's Gate cult, for example, right? I mean, there's so many examples in cults where they would prophesy something and it didn't happen, and then they would double down. Which is a weird phenomenon for any of you guys who've looked into cults and stuff like that. For some reason, it seems like, and maybe I should do a show about this at some point because it is fascinating. These futuristic prophetic cults, when their prediction about the end of the world doesn't come true, you would think that it would make the cult disband and break up. But it turns out, for some reason, and I don't know what the psychology behind this is. I need to do a deeper dive into it to see if anybody's figured this out. But what happens is it actually causes people to double down on their claims, and then they believe even harder that they're somehow tapped into some kind of direct link.
I have no idea how it works, but it seems to be the case. Yeah, I think part of it might have to do with the idea that they can't fathom the idea that their God is wrong or whatever, so they just keep pushing it back, and somehow it makes them feel like their belief is more validated, even though it didn't come true, because they just keep pushing it back.
That's that cognitive dissonance I was talking about. Oh, here's Deconverted Man. That's awesome. Let me get him on the stage.
Deconverted Man, let's go.
Deconverted Man.
I knew you were gonna do that because I remember that. Objective ethics.
I don't do it nearly as good as Deconverted Man does.
JonnyB innovation / tutorials and objective ethics.
That's awesome. I love that.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
That was great, man. What a way to announce yourself.
JonnyB, good.
Deconverted Man, you had an interesting.
The question. No, wait. The question was okay because you didn't type words. Words are hard. Okay, so like, I'm sure there's some apologetic for it. So I don't know what that would be offhand. Some dude's like, oh yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of God, and X is gonna happen. And they're like, all right, yeah, sure you are, But somebody's like, hey, write that down. That might come true later. Like we gotta make sure we record that. And then like you would think that somebody would be like, yeah, X, this thing's gonna happen. And they're like, hey, write that down, just in case it happens. And then that doesn't happen. They're like, okay, that guy's a false prophet, kill him. But that doesn't happen. Like, so how do they make, like, how is it all just not post hoc? Like, they just said, hey, yeah, this guy said this thing, and he's a prophet, because we're saying he is. Like, it's just, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I said that right.
Well, essentially, yeah, you got it right. I mean, like, obviously, I don't believe that any of these prophets are actually.
Oh, no, yeah.
But,
like, how do the Jews or Christians or whatever, say, well, how did they that were at that time when some, Joe Schmo says, hey, I'm talking about God, know to write that down in the first place? That's like,
theoretically, the prophets themselves would be writing it down, like they would be writing it. So, but like we learn in like Deuteronomy 18, I think it is, that if somebody is deemed to be a false prophet, then their word shouldn't be taken seriously because they've spoken presumptuously. And then I believe it's Deuteronomy 13 that says you should kill false prophets.
Yeah.
So, basically what it is we get people who write down prophecies, they don't come true, but rather than like trying accepting that it didn't come true, they'll just keep pushing it forward. So there's not really there's not really a way for them to know definitively that somebody is a false prophet because a lot of people keep pushing it forward anyways.
Yeah.
So how would they actually even know that somebody is a false prophet?
I think that they just like, okay, we like this guy or we like what this person said, so we're just gonna have that. And it's like I get to the point where I'm like, I don't even know if these people even existed. Like maybe it's just all made up. Nothing is true.
But and like Robin pointed out, some of these prophecies, I wouldn't say necessarily vague, but some of them are things that have been happening for a long time.
Oh yeah,
definitely not a sign for anything.
Hey, there's gonna be wars. Oh my God, I didn't know that. It's like, oh yeah, it's like this thing stuff. It's like, oh, rich, powerful people are lying to people. Oh no, that never happens. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. That's pretty much what it is.
What? People are lying to people? What? That never happens.
Robin brought up a really good point too here. What I got highlighted on the screen is that conspiracy theories and prophecies, failed prophecies, they're all failed prophecies in my opinion.
Yeah, they
as
are.
near as I can tell anyway. But they do seem to actually kind of fit hand in hand together. And people do absolutely double down anything that they think can verify or justify their belief, they grab onto, and anything else they just reject offhand.
Right. Well, there's this guy covered him a little bit, and he kept saying the end of the world, it was this date, then it's this date, and like every video he has is that every video, and then like the last one, he's like, it's gonna be midnight for sure. I'm like, okay, and you're not going to be right, and we know you're going to make another video, and he did. Even though he said he wasn't going to. It's like, yeah, no, we knew.
Another thing is that you have all these people making predictions about the future. Eventually, one of them has to be correct because you have so many people making these predictions. Eventually, one of them has to actually get something right. And
yeah, Nostradamus was a big one for a while because he just like wrote so much stuff. It's like, well, if you guess enough things, then some of your things are going to be true, but they only look at the hits and never look at the misses.
or the fall of the temple. People were already predicting the fall of the temple. Not just, Jesus supposedly prophesied it, but people were already predicting it before that because of current events that were happening. People had already predicted that the temple was going to fall, and it did. And Jesus is not unique in that regard. He's just if he actually predicted it, he's just one person out of many.
Well, they can look back at history because the temple had already fallen, a few hundred years before that, or several hundred years before that, when it fell to the Babylonians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about you, D Converted Man, when you were talking. You just brought it up now, but I was going to ask you about that because I did watch some of your videos about that guy and the prophesying about the Jesus second coming and what do they call that? The rapture. And there's another guy who made a big splash on the internet. I can't remember what his name was, but it was just like within a month or so ago that he was prophesying about the end of the world coming. And then after it didn't happen, he said, "Oh, I got the wrong calendar. It was the Gregorian calendar I was using. I should have used the
yeah. That was the guy. It's like, and God's date is a month behind, and it was beautiful because how just completely wrong he was in every single way, and he still kept going and going. And I tried to join. It was Daniel's show. He had a WhatsApp, and I tried to join that. And I asked too many questions. I asked like 3 questions. I got banned.
I did that on a flat Earth. So I was in a flat Earth. It was called Earth Awakenings, and every time I offered like significant pushback on them, they fucking muted me. They didn't want to hear my opposition. Eventually, I left because I got sick of them just muting me because I was opposing them and they didn't like it, so they just kept muting me. So I left eventually, but it was fun because
the flat Earth experiment TFE, where the flat earther people that went with the guy. And they're like, yeah, I don't know how to make sense of this. And, and then the other people that didn't go there, oh, yeah, it was all made up. It's all special effects.
And they actually demonstrated on the stream that it isn't special effects.
Yeah. But then, of course, the other people were like, no, it's all fake. It's fake, fake, fake. And it's like, oh, my God.
Because one of the guys on the stream had his green screen on, and it was blurring out the green. Sorry, not the green. It was blurring out the blue on his jacket. He had like a patch on his jacket, and it was blurring out as his logo because of that. Which means that the background is not a blue or green screen because it did.
Yeah, but they need it to be true, so it doesn't matter. It's like, this is.
One of them sent me a video of supposedly a working flat Earth model with 24-hour sunlight. And you know what they sent me? They sent me a blurry, dark video where you literally couldn't see a damn thing. And when I pointed that out, he's like, "You're dishonest," and blocked me out. I'm like, dude, you literally can't see anything on the video. It's literally like almost pitch black and it's blurry. You can't see anything.
Someone. Well, I'll go into that. I'm sorry.
And the worst part is that
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, deconverted. You were saying someone what?
No, I decided not to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
I was like, no, never mind.
Deconverted man muted himself.
Yeah, I was like, no, never mind. No, I'm not going to talk about that. That's not a thing.
What does surprise me is that because when I did check out some of those channels, like the one you had highlighted, Deconverted Man, what blows me away is that as many times as these people, it's on the internet, it's on the fucking internet, so people can look and see the history of these failed predictions, and yet there's still people in their comment section saying, "Praise Jesus,"
That's great. It's like, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, he's you're right. The guy is right," and I'm like, "What? How many times do you need to be wrong?" It's like, well, no, it's going to be this time for sure. And I'm like, are you just making this content just to get attention at this point? Like, you know, and it's the same sort of thing with Dr. Derek guy where, you know, basically in my talk with him, he admits that he knows what he's making is low quality, but you know, he expects people to pay him for doing actual work. I'm like, yeah, that's a brilliant business model. I mean, I'm gonna make crap on YouTube, and then yeah, sure, people, you want me to do good stuff? I'll pay me, then I'll do good stuff. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said for meeting people where they're at, and when it comes to these types of arguments, you know, Chris, I want to be careful how I say this. I don't want to generalize for everybody because that's not fair, and that's not what I mean. But it in a particular ring or a particular sect of these people, these apologists, they are intentionally putting out antagonistic videos to slander, I guess would be the word for it, or to I don't know, to basically hurt atheists' feelings or atheism, and try to make it look like atheists are just immoral, baby killing, or whatever kind of, you know, horrible people. They know they've got a bad argument, and they don't even attempt to present something that's reasonable or rational. It's just like all atheists reject God, or
that's his
God,
whole shtick.
All atheists think that something came from nothing, and stuff that just absolutely
that's his whole channel. And you know, he uses the fact that he has a PhD as an appeal to self authority, and yet he doesn't appear to utilize it in any of his videos. He doesn't even get philosophy right, which is what his degree is in. And yet when he does actual work, you know, it's like that's good quality stuff that he produces. So it's not like he can't produce good stuff. It's just, I don't know. He's lazy. I don't know. It really irritated me. Anyways, I don't know, stuff and things. You know, I don't know.
Robin's right. There's a guy. I agree with you 100%, Robin. His name is Joel from the Think Institute, and he's got a little protege, I'm calling him, named Alex, and they run Tag. And it is such Tag is such a bad argument. I've actually it's horrible. Tag is the worst. And I've been hearing people trying to run that, and the more I hear it, the more frustrated I get with it. Because
logic with that guy, blah blah. Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
there's another guy who's really bad. He's intentionally bad. Like, I know that he does. He targets his name. He goes by Darth Dawkins.
Oh yeah. Everyone hates him.
Oh, he is bad, dude. I suffered through. There's a young man on the internet who goes by T Jump. I think his name might be Tom.
Oh yeah.
He's a pretty smart kid. And he was debating this Darth Dawkins, and I guess the video was from a year ago. I just popped up on my thing the other day, so I watched it, and it was unwatchable listening to this guy, this Darth Dawkins guy, over talk, dodge questions, make ridiculously unfounded assertions, and as if he just landed some kind of a major talking point. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, these people are insufferable.
No, Darth Dawkins is definitely one of the worst. I remember there was this video, I forgot who it was, but this atheist pretended that he became a Hindu, and he was using the same argument that Darth Dawkins uses, but for Hinduism. And eventually Darth Dawkins just had to admit that the argument is stupid, because it's basically a precept. It's not even really a precept argument. It's it's divine revelation.
Do you have the link to that?
I don't have it on me, but I could find it later. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
there's actually, speaking of Dr. Derek McAllister, so I met him several months ago. He used to do a weekly call-in show to his channel, and I actually called in several times. And the thing is, we had pleasant conversations. You know, he didn't do any of his nonsense on that call-in show that he does with his videos that he posts. It's weird. It's almost like he's bipolar or something. I don't know what the deal with that is, but he was trying to run one of the precept arguments. I think it was the maximally great being argument, you know, and I told him, I says, you know, this argument is really bad because you could substitute that with a maximally great pizza or anything you want, you know what I mean, and run the same argument, and it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, there's a machine that can travel through time and universes that exist in some possible universe, Therefore, it exists in all possible universes since it can travel through time and universes. There you go. Yeah, same argument. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like
sure.
with arguments like that, you can substitute with basically anything, and it has
Exactly.
the same amount of validity.
And that's the
Okay,
point that I
which-
made to him. And so he's like, well, you're just straw manning the Christian position. And I
Mhm.
says, no, I'm dealing with the argument itself. And I'm
Yeah.
showing you that, you could run the same exact argument with anything. I can literally put in a maximally great pizza, and do this and run the same argument.
Yeah,
and it works out logically. It works out the same. And he says, well,
the-
you have to meet Christians where they're at. And I says, well, then in that case, I'll just go with Ahura Mazda and Zoroastrianism. And then at that point, Dr. Derek McAllister was like, yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that, but then we'd have to compare, like historical accuracy and all this other bullshit.
He likes to do that. I
All
noticed
hail the
that later.
maximally great pizza.
Yeah. I mean, he said that was the sound argument. I was like, wow. But he also said he's agnostic about the age of the universe and Earth. And I'm like, well, there we go. That's all we really need to know about him.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you got a PhD and you're agnostic about the age of the Earth. Yeah, okay. You got education, right? Like, I mean, I know philosophy does, is different, but like you had to have learned something. Like, how can you? It's just nonsense, But yeah, it's fine. Whatever. I don't know. I can't find content today. I didn't find any content today. It might be another month before I find anything. Nobody's making anything. It's great. I had somebody like, oh, what is this all? If you had the evidence, you wouldn't believe it anyways. I'm like, well, we don't have the evidence. So what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I don't. And I'm like, because he mentioned a photo or whatever. I'm like, do you have a photo of God? And he's like, well, if I did, would that convince you? I'm like, do you have one? He's like, no. I'm like, well, then what are we talking about? So, show me the photo, then we'll talk. I'll be like, yeah, sure, that's God. Whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, on Robin's comment, I did see that actually, Robin, that Shannon Q or whatever that lady's name is, and she handled that with grace. I can't remember whose channel I caught that on, but that was actually one of the few times that Darth Dawkins was the most civil and the only time I've seen him relatively civil. And he still wasn't a very nice person, but I don't know if it had something to do with the fact that he was talking to a woman, or because usually I just see him, fighting with men. So I'm wondering if there was a certain dynamic there, because sometimes there is a psychological effect that happens when men speak to women versus when men are speaking to other men. So I kind of wondered if that wasn't what was going on. But Shannon Q, she dismantled him.
It was the only time he's ever spoken to a woman.
Probably. Yeah, but that would not surprise me.
I was like, I shouldn't say it. I said it. I couldn't help it. And I'm evil. Did you? We covered it on Saturday Night Atheist, the best video of all time. I don't know if everyone's seen that, because it's great. That's just, you guys saw it, right?
No, are you talking about this just last night?
Oh wait, I can't post links. Hold on. It was, I don't know, when did we do it? Was it, I don't know what the bleep. No, it was the night before that. The guy's holding up water, and like he's like, water is aqua, and here's molecules and stuff. And then Logic covered it, but we got it first. And I put it on my channel. I was like, hey, I'm not even going to talk about this video. I'm just going to let you know about it. Go watch it. And I'm not even going to cover the video. It's just so...
Well, I'm curious about one thing, because I've been on the internet quite a bit, especially because I had such serious medical problems for a couple of years recently. I was stuck on my couch. I was on the internet a lot with nothing else to do. And I had not seen until more recently that there are apologists trying to make the argument that asking for evidence for God is self-refuting. It's like, what? I mean, Dr. Derek McAllister has been doing some videos about that. You're not going to find evidence for something like this, and you shouldn't expect to.
Yeah. That's and that's the other thing. It's like, oh, you're, this whole, the latest thing was like scientism. Like, oh, you're all doing scientism. That's not what the poll said. The poll didn't ask whether or not anyone adheres to scientism, and asked him a dichotomy question, which was kind of bad for a peer review questionnaire. I don't know why they didn't shape it better, but it's like, can everything be known by science, or are there questions unresolved or something like that? I forget, but. And it's like, well, given the choice, you're gonna have to have to choose it. It's like, yeah, science can explain everything. Like, because the other one I can't. I'm like, well, maybe they're both unfair as an answer, but it didn't tell us if any person ascribes to scientism. But of course, he misrepresents it and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and the more apologists push against scientism, the more I'm like, oh, maybe there's something to it. Like, maybe that's what I should do. I should just go full scientism. Screw it, Like, the more you tell me not to do it, the more I think it's a good thing, Anyways,
I do consider myself to be, I'm definitely a naturalist. I don't know. It depends on how people draw this distinction between materialist and naturalist, because I think that there's a natural explanation for everything, whether it's necessarily material or not. I'm kind of agnostic about that, because I don't know if we know enough about quantum physics and things like that to be able to make that specific kind of determination. But who knows? There's also the argument about the qualia of things in life, like the sensation of love, or what does it feel like to sit next to a warm fire? You know what I mean? I mean, we could look at physical things for sure, but there's a certain something that happens inside of us that I think we explain better with philosophy or psychology than actual like empirical data.
Was the greatest amount of variance on the survey was what natural. It seemed like people didn't understand what naturalism or materialism even is per se, and then that made the question, something that they were I mean, everybody answered, but it's like, it's like, well, not really, kind of ish. Like, I don't know what it. And I also had that same idea too, because I was like, I was talking to Mike, Answers in Atheism. I was like, well, I'm not going to say everything is material, everything is natural, because I don't know everything. And he said, well, it's like, well, you could say to what we do know. I'm like, oh, it's like localized. So I was like, oh, localized. Yeah, okay. I'm a localized materialist naturalist. That I could do. Yeah, okay. So I was like, yeah, all right. So that made sense to me. I was like, okay, so that's a modification I could have as a label. Because everything that I know about is material natural. That's a fair assessment I can make. I can't say everything, because I don't know everything. I only know what I know. So I think that qualification of it might change how people respond to that question. But I want to do it. I wish I could get like 1,000 people, something, but I'd have to make it like more like check marks rather than open-ended, because open-ended just it was hard to get data from that. But oh well, anyways. Johnny didn't answer the questions.
That was a lot of work you put into that. Coming up with that. I thought it was really brilliant myself. I really enjoyed doing that. In fact, I do plan on doing a video talking about my responses to that survey, and because I think I really enjoyed doing that, and I also really enjoyed looking at other people's responses, and I just would be so curious, to see what theists, how they would answer those questions. I know it was directed specifically.
Well, we got a couple of believer-ish snuck in under the radar, sort of, that I wasn't aware of at the time. And so, but it's only 12 people. So it's not, I mean, it's very limited data. It's, but it's like, well, that's who I got. So, I mean, and you did help find a bunch of people there, OE. And, I was like, oh, that was really cool, because I was like, oh, I'll reach out and I'll ask. And I did. And, it is what it is, Some people don't want to do that sort of thing, and some people do, and it was interesting. I was like very. I wish I'd written down my prediction. That was one, mistake I made. I didn't do that. I should have done that, because I predicted that everybody would say atheist is non-belief in God, Yeah, but another prediction I had was that nobody would answer what the true nature of reality is, and everybody did try. So I was like, well, okay. I didn't think that would happen. Okay, cool, neat. I mean, not that anyone really had an answer, but everybody tried to answer. I mean, there was like an I don't know, but I thought everybody was going to say I don't know. But people said energy or magnetic flux or stuff like this. And I was like, yeah, that's okay, cool, all right. Yeah, what do you think there, Johnny? What's the true nature of reality? Come on, I know you know it. Come on, answer the question. Answer the question.
Depends. I don't really. I guess what naturalism, would be my position, but it's always. I feel like if somebody doesn't know, it is more honest to just say you don't know than to like try to create an answer. And as if something,
yeah.
And you said that is like a lot of Christians that I talk to will not know something, but they will pretend like they do. They will answer questions like they know something I've asked them when they clearly don't. And then they'll admit that they don't know it. And I'm like, you should if you should just say you don't know, because it's okay. It's okay to not know something, and it's the honest thing to do is just say, yeah, I don't know. If you don't know something, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's like, well, speculation wise, like if we had to like drill down and say, okay, the true nature of reality is boiled down to, I don't know, energy. I don't know. That's the best I could do. It's like energy.
Energy, yeah, it could be.
Fluctuations, I don't know, possibilities of wave patterns. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, will we ever know it sort of things. And it's like, I don't.
Well, so theoretically, energy can't be created or destroyed. So theoretically, there was always energy, so maybe energy really is like a part of the foundation. Maybe energy itself is a part of the foundation.
You can't. I mean, that is without energy, there wouldn't have been reality or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, and you also have to have the rule of no paradox allowed. Apparently, if you have paradox, then everything goes bananas. So it's like, okay, we know a couple things about reality. Yay, but oh yeah, hey Johnny, what do you think the word atheist is? Do you agree?
Atheism is just a lack of belief in a God. It just means you're not convinced that a God exists.
Yeah, that's everybody answered that same thing. And without knowing, they didn't consult, they all answered the same way.
If atheism is a religion, then abstinence is a sex position.
Man. Yeah, well.
Oh, that was classic. I thank you, Johnny, for putting links in the chat, by the way. I know she did that. I really appreciate it.
And Johnny,
I'm really bad at that. I don't even know. I'm so dysfunctional in running this channel, to be honest with you. That's why I really needed some mod help, because I just can't keep up with everything. I do think that because being a naturalist and an agnostic, I do think that it's totally possible that we might discover through science that what many people define as a deity. I don't know if I should even say God, because once you get into the anthropomorphized God shit, everything goes out the window. But if you're just talking about a deity, it would not surprise me at all to find that we could essentially describe energy as this God concept. You know what I mean? Because energy is fundamental, and there's also a lot of work being done on consciousness, and they're finding out some really interesting stuff about that. And I'm not going to say one way or the other that I'm convinced, but there is some really interesting stuff about consciousness, depending on how you define consciousness itself. There's work being done in bioelectronics or bioelectrics in simple organisms. And so they're really postulating that consciousness is more fundamental or rudimentary than we might think, because we tend to think of consciousness for animals that are more highly evolved, especially at the human level, for example, but even some other animals that have a central nervous system. But now they're going back even further than that and saying, well, conscious could be even more rudimentary than that, because it's basically our ability to respond to your environment, at which point every single organic organism is technically conscious. You know what I mean? So I could see us mapping something like consciousness and energy into a deity concept. and I'd have no problem with that as long as you don't give it intention or will or ethics and all this other bullshit that gets mapped onto it once they just start to anthropomorphize it. I think that you could make an argument for something like that.
Yeah, it's not a conscious force, or it doesn't make decisions, and people want that. It's like, well, what good does it do me to know that my molecules will keep existing, after I'm gone? Because I want there to know that my molecules still exist. Like, it only counts if I'm aware. But it's like, oh, okay, well, let's say you're aware, but you're just molecules now. Well, then that's weird. Like, like, that is out right. Well, now I'm a sun. Yay! All right, It's like,
I mean, technically, everything this planet is made of like pieces, remnants of the sun.
we're all stardust, right? So like, well, it was a sun for a while, and I'll be a sun again, I guess, at some point. And then I don't know what will happen. So yeah,
I mean, to me, that's pretty cool. Is the fact that all the things on Earth are from space. Like the matter, the very foundational parts are from space. They're not from Earth. Like, like I mean, the Earth itself was formed from after the sun was formed. So, and it's from remnants of the sun essentially. So, I think it's really cool that after we're gone, eventually, what we're made of, even though we're not going to be around to experience it, or at least at least I don't think we will be. There's no real evidence for it, but even though we're not going to be around for it, it's still pretty cool that the things we're made of will continue to exist. We just won't be around for it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, universe did fine without us, I guess.
Because inevitably, I'm going to go in the ground, and things are going to eat me, and then they're going to get eaten, and then
honestly, that's why I'm donating my brain to science. That way, it can become a cyborg.
My brain's not particularly interesting. They would just put it in the back room somewhere and be like, eh.
He's gonna put it in the back room.
Well, they'll label it AB normal, and then when the guy comes along, they'll be like, oh, I got AB normal's brain. And they're like, oh no, you got normal's brain, no. And then you'll be Frankenstein's monster, and then I don't know, something will happen, and
Postmortem brain studies have been so helpful in a lot of different fields, but one of the most impactful ways for me, one of the things I learned is, so I had to actually change my position on the transgender thing. Is I believed, yeah, we should use people's pronouns because, I'm always trying to be polite to people, right? But I didn't think there was really much to that. I thought it was kind of just a identity, something going on inside their head, a dysphoria of some kind I didn't really understand. But people have been telling me, oh, there's actually science behind this. You should look into it, And so I finally did. And it turns out that because of postmortem brain studies, they discovered, and I don't have the name of it written down, it's very complicated, but there's an actual receptor that's in our brain. And I don't remember what the function is, but basically this is has to do partly with how we identify with our gender, quote unquote. And what they found is that in males, I can't remember if it's larger or smaller, but it's much like the gametes, where in males, it's a specific size, and in females, it's the opposite. So it's either larger in males and smaller in females, or vice versa. And they found this to be so consistent that they can tell by studying a brain, cutting it open and looking at it, obviously post-mortem, hopefully, that whether a person felt like they identified as either male or female. And they found out that with transgender people, they had the opposite size. So there's actually a whole science behind this that I was unaware of. And once you start to see some actual evidence like that, then it's for me, that was very compelling. Is like, not only just doing it because of being polite, if that's your only motivation, if you're a science denier, if you're a flat earther or a flood proponent or a young earth creationist and you deny science, then at least do it to be polite. But if you're a person who actually accepts science, you should look into that study, because I thought it was fascinating to find that out.
That is actually really fascinating. Yeah, I didn't actually know about that one, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that for some people, and I had a long time ago, I had, when I first discovered all that stuff, I was so confused. And I had questions, and rather than point to science, people were just saying, well, just be polite, and these emotional arguments that just don't matter to me. And I'm like, well, there's science, go look it up. I'm like, you're making the claim, you show me the science, but yeah, I did see that those studies, and I was like, okay, well, all right, cool. Now, what I think would be good. Now, I don't know if we can do it, but if we can scan the brain while you're alive and figure out, you know, if it's male or female brain, and then perform whatever we need to do for that person, that you would be like, here's evidence, we know that this brain is this, and then people would be like, okay, well, that alleviates the concern that, like, well, what if there's a mental illness that mimics this real thing, and we're not treating that mental illness because we're not diagnosing it right? And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but hopefully they're being very careful, but we need more scientific based communication on it, I guess. I'm not the one to do it. Obviously, I don't know enough about it. But I, again, of course, that's not going to necessarily convince some people, but at least, at least it's there, and so with evolution, like, we've got tons and tons of stuff on that.
Yep.
So I don't know, and it's one of these, like, well, some, X, Y, and Z, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, oh yeah, there's all that, but you can here's how to make sense of it. And,
Hi, Robin.
Anyways, I don't know. It's complicated. It's like, because how do you change people's minds? So that, let me deal with religion. I understand religion. I can deal with that.
I will say that, like, that's the same thing with me. It's like, I know that I'm not I'm more than likely not going to convince most people I talk to, but at least it's out there. And
yeah.
Like, at least people are gonna watch it. Like, I don't do these discussions I have with objective going over these failed prophecies. I know that it's going to reach somebody. Somebody's gonna see that and be like, huh, what I've been taught doesn't seem to be true. And they're going to go look into it as well, and they're going to see, yeah, he's right. So some of these things don't actually line up with what I've been taught, and they're going to start to realize that what they've been taught isn't true.
Yeah.
It might help them.
Yeah, I mean, just mind your own business. Yeah, it's like, that's the other thing. As I get older, it's like, it doesn't. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Whatever. If it doesn't affect me, I just don't care anymore. It's like, whatever. There's too many things to be upset about. You'll just drive yourself insane.
I'd like to just introduce Robin to everybody. I know you guys probably are familiar with who she is, but just for anybody who might watch this video later, Robin is somebody I've really enjoyed getting to know. I hardly ever get to see her talk. She's in the chat. She's always chatting it up with people in the comments and stuff like that. But I have seen her get on Missing Mods platform quite a few times. So really, really nice to hear her on there. I think she did do some videos with Joe, and I think about it, a couple on politics. And she does. I just recently, and because I'm so busy, I haven't had a chance to get to the whole thing in one chunk. So I'm doing it in pieces. But I'm watching a debate that she did against one of the Proverbs guys. These guys are part of the Kent Hovind clan, if I remember right, and all that nonsense. And so they're young earth creationists. I'm pretty sure the guy she was debating was one of those people as well. It was a very polite, very civil debate. Both of you and your interlocutor presented good arguments and stuff, but you are absolutely slaying that guy. I am so impressed with your knowledge of American history. It's actually, I'm kind of embarrassed about how little I know compared to somebody like yourself, to be honest with you. I was really impressed. About the forefathers, the Declaration, the Constitution. I mean, your information that you put together for that debate, really solid, Robin. You're doing a great job so far in that.
Thank you very much. That was very nice. I got some really good feedback on that. I have a lot of the writings of the founding fathers, but I will admit I did have AI help me, come up with some of the information. So,
well, it's okay for like finding sources and stuff. Like it works for finding sources and stuff. It's just that sometimes it amalgamates things, and sometimes it creates little errors because it's adding information together that's not actually supposed to be together. But it's good for finding sources because you can ask it for sources, and you can see that some of it's going to quote Reddit, some of it's going to quote other sites, but then you also get the good sites, things that you're actually looking for, and be like, okay, yeah, so I can use these, and those will help you. It's a good tool.
Yeah, it was. I worked for pretty hard on the on the research for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of it I knew, but then like I had to go back and like study on the. I had so much material actually for that debate that I could like. I went back and studied the Greek philosophers and all the Enlightenment philosophers, and I went back and studied all the Greek and Roman Republic, the ideals that came out of that, and so like I have like a whole notebook full of notes that I made just for that one debate. So it's just like it was, but yeah.
Oh, you could tell.
That-
Listening to that debate, you could tell you put a lot of work in your prep. Like I said, I was really impressed because you had such a solid foundation for the information, and you did a great job of building it up systematically, starting with the basic, and then working up from there. So everything had your whole argument was so strong that you didn't have any holes for the guy to poke at, and that's really tough to do because it takes hours and hours and hours of prep time to be that prepared. I could tell that you had put a lot of effort into that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with using whatever resources are available to you. You should be doing that. That's smart. You know what I mean? As long as you're putting your own ideas behind it, you're getting AI to help you find resources and do research and come up with stuff. There's nothing wrong with that at all, as far as I'm concerned.
No. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Which I would like to, I kept all my argument. I would like to debate that some more. I have debated that once, but I didn't get to do any research. I debated like Jim Bob on tacos one time, like on a 10-minute debate, like a 10-minute debate, and but I still won the like the poll in chat. Of course, I'm probably more popular than Jim Bob. That's not much of a surprise. But
competition, no.
I had a debate like that against, in fact, you mentioned Joel from the Think Institute. That's actually the first interaction that I had live online. I was really just trying to test out my connection because it took me forever to get set up because I was just using my phone to where my phone settings were right to where it would even let me go onto somebody's thing. That was so frustrating. But anyway, so I happened to come across the Think Institute was doing open debates. And so I thought, I'll just pop in just to see if I could even get this to work. I had no idea what I was doing or what the topics were or whatever. And I ended up debating against Matt Slick, who's a well-known Christian apologist. And apparently I destroyed him. Somebody who was watching that debate, he goes by the name Pro Debates. He had taken the transcript and loaded it into AI. And I got rated like an 8. I got third place of all debaters. I got rated like an 8 out of 10. And it was so funny because, like I said, I really wasn't prepared to debate anybody or anything. I just was testing out my stuff, and I ended up just steamrolling him.
Did he quote the verse, the Israel, whatever, or the suffering servant thing?
No, he ran away. He ran away. He got one of the reasons he got dinged so much by AI is he refused to engage any of the questions that I asked him. He kept calling out fallacies that weren't actual fallacies.
Yeah. Oh, he likes to
because
do that.
I was just asking him. I was like, basically, it was about ethics, right? And I was like, if God told you to murder babies, would you do it? And he's, God would never do that. That's a malformed.
Yeah, he did.
All this stuff. You know what I mean? I was like, what?
Absolutely, God said to do that.
I know. That's why I was like, but I was really, really polite. Like I try to be. I was really polite and stuff. And in fact, he said. That's the one that was the biggest victory, to be honest with you, is that he said himself at least 3 or 4 times. He's like, I have to give you credit. You're the nicest person I've ever talked to in these debates and stuff like that. I was like, oh, thank you very much. Stop running away from my questions now.
Yeah, he will pretend to be polite. Yeah, I interacted with him years and years and years ago, and have my 4 car harm things. Although one of them is kind of dead because the person decided to delete all their videos. I don't know why. They just did. It's like, okay.
Yeah, like the Bible God condones baby murder. It's not something he's not going to do. He does it all the time. 1 Samuel 15:3, he commands the genocide of the Amalekites, including the children,
kill them all.
I actually, Dr. Derek McAllister, speaking of that guy, he avoided that. I had a conversation with him one time about biblical morality and ethics and stuff like that. And he's like, he's like, well, God's laws were never intended for God to follow. I was like,
yeah.
How does that even work?
Oh, there we go.
Well, regardless if he was never meant to follow them, we can still look at the bad morality and say, hey, That's fucked up. So I mean,
Yeah, he tried to use an analogy. He's like, think about it like a football game, right? Like God is God's the referee. The rules don't apply to him. And I'm like, dude, that's a terrible analogy. It would only work if the referee was tackling people, grabbing the football, and running it for touchdowns and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, if the referee
God's playing the game. God's interacting with. He's actually playing the game, and so it'd be like the referee. The guys are getting ready to hike the ball, and the referee comes and grabs it and runs down for a touchdown, and he says, "You can't touch me because I'm a referee. That's against the rules." It's like that would be a more accurate
referee
analogy.
absolutely has to follow rules too. What are you talking about? It's like, what? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, God's referee. Yeah.
The referee picks up the ball and runs to the goal, and it's like, the rules don't apply to me.
Well, he trips the players. You run down through there, the referee trips a player. He's such a...
The rules don't apply to me.
These rules were never meant for me. I can't be a murderer because murder only applies
I'm
to
shooting all of you. The rules don't apply to me. Wait, what?
The referee usually doesn't insert himself into the game at just any random times.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
if they do that, they get fired, probably.
If you have a ref, you need a referee. Yeah.
Unless you're a Kentucky basketball player, and then all the refs were against us. See, so that's what
I was waiting for somebody to make some kind of comment like that. I stopped watching sports many years ago because I was too emotionally wrapped up in it. I've been an athlete my whole life. I'm really into sports, and I watched them as well as played them. And I got to a point to where I realized one day that I'm like yelling at my TV. I'm yelling at my dog. Why isn't the guy passing the ball? My dog doesn't know what the fuck is going on. I'm yelling at everybody. And I said, I got to stop doing this. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody can hear me. Nobody cares. And I'm so emotionally wrapped up in this stuff. It just makes no sense. There's got to be something better I could do with my time.
Yeah, your dog's like, what'd I do?
I know, the poor dog.
I really enjoyed your debate too with Mark. That was, yeah.
Oh, he killed me, Robin. I'm so embarrassed about that debate. I don't want to take anything away from Mark, so I want to preface that right away because Mark did a great job, and no matter what, he may or may not have won that debate, even if he'd have got my best. But the problem is that I was so busy with work and I was fighting off a flu, and so that morning because Deconverted Man actually allowed me to email him my argument. And he broke it down for me where the weaknesses and stuff were. And so I had reworked my entire argument into new syllogisms and stuff like that. And the morning of my debate, and when I wasn't paying attention because I wasn't feeling well, and apparently my cloud storage had turned itself off or didn't start up or whatever the fuck. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't auto saving, and I didn't manually save it because I'm not used to having to do that. I just, it just auto saves everything. And so when I shut everything down to move it to the room I was going to do the debate in and opened everything back up, it was just gone. And I didn't realize this until Sarah was introducing us. And so I was actually like brain frozen there for about the first 10 minutes of that debate, trying to figure out, I was in total panic mode because I was like, fuck, I lost all that work. And I didn't know if I could do it from memory. So I just went with some old material, which I knew was problematic. Deconverted Man and a couple other people had already showed me where the holes were and stuff. So I really fucked myself. Really fucked myself.
Okay, that explains it because I was like,
I
was like, wait a minute. I know we went over this. What the bleep? Whatever. I don't know. I thought you had changed something, though.
I had tightened it up a little bit from what you said, but then I decided to actually redo the whole syllogism. And so
and then you lost that version.
So Mark came with what I knew Mark would do is come with the is-ought problem, because I had this conversation with so many people, and every single person says, oh, you can't get an is from an ought, and they run that same argument that Mark ran. But you actually can. David Hume did not say you can't get an is from an ought. People say that all the time, but that's because they haven't actually studied Hume. David Hume himself, in his own ethical model, he gets an is from an ought. What he said specifically was that it doesn't logically follow that if there's a Christian God, that you ought to do what he says, because there's a number of reasons why it's problematic. People don't believe in the God. People may not care what the God says, blah, 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 blah. So that's what David Hume said is his is-ought problem is it just because God's giving the commands, it doesn't logically follow you ought to follow the commands. And he's right about that. But he never said you cannot get an is from an ought. And Immanuel Kant actually showed that through what's called the hypothetical imperative. So you can get to objective morality through the hypothetical imperative, because it basically, once you have a target goal, so it's like this analogy, like, and it gets used in atheist circles against Christians all the time, right? Like, once we establish the rules for the game of chess, you can come up with objectively good or objectively bad chess moves because there's a goal in mind, right? That's why computers can play chess, because there's a system to it. And you could get the same thing with morality. Once you have a particular goal, which is human flourishing or cooperation, then you can build an objective standard for morality from there. But I didn't have the syllogism for it in front of me, and I didn't want to just shoot myself in the foot and make it even worse than I knew it was going to be.
Can I
So
just say
that's how
though
I
that,
ran.
can I just say though that Mark agrees with that. Mark agrees that if, like, say that, like we use a humanist position as humanists, if you use that framework for morality, the humanist, commandments or whatever, they're not called commandments, but whatever it is, then you can make objective morals based, like moral decisions based on that framework. So Mark agrees with what you're saying, but the thing about it is the actual framework is the subjective part.
Which is true. And that's where people get caught up, because morality isn't talking about setting up the framework, like setting up the goal itself, right? That's not what morality is dealing with. Morality is dealing with, once the goal is established, morality determines what we ought to do to accomplish that particular goal. Yes, that's where it becomes objective.
Mark is 100% in agreement with that. Like, I don't know if
I would have articulated that, it would have tripped him up enough to where, because like you said, he would have had to kind of agree, because he was, in a sense, by going with, he separated ethics and morality to kind of say there's this meta ethic, right? That's kind of where he was considering that to be more objective, because it's a meta ethic, but the morality is subjective, but it's actually not. It's morality is the same as what that meta ethics is. It's the goal itself, the decision to either strive for the goal of cooperation or to not strive for it. That is subjective. But once that goal is chosen, then there's the objective standard. And we also have an objective basis at the root of it, because nature, the laws of nature, determine how those goals actually even fit, what the consequences for the actions are. So like murder, the consequences of murder are people seek revenge. The consequences of theft are it causes people not to trust you. The consequences of slavery is it leads to revolt, so on and so forth. That's determined by nature. It just is the reality that we live in. We don't decide that's what the consequences. Well, we can, there's certain variables in there. We can decide to get revenge or not, but ultimately, murder leads to those consequences, so on and so forth.
Yes. I feel for you. Like, if you lost all your stuff. Mark is a great debater. Like, he has done a lot of it, and he is very good. But he agrees with you 100% on that right there. Like, I don't know if y'all didn't get to that, I guess. But I actually, but see, the thing that I have the trouble is, like you said, the goal is subjective. Yeah. Like the framework, and that's the hard part. But I think that if we ever do find out that there is some objective morality that exists, that it will come from what I was talking about, like the deterministic part of our universe. That
I agree with that position as well, Robin. And I really, I'm so glad that you brought that up in the discussion, the open discussion afterwards, because I agree to 100%. And I'm not a hard determinist per se. I'm more of, I call it soft determinism, but I think it's technically might be called compatibility or compatibilitism or some shit like that, where you basically take this middle ground. I think that it's like maybe an 80-20, maybe even a 90-10 split between determinism and I won't even use the word free will, because free will definitely does not exist. There's no such thing as free will, but we do make conscious choices, right? But the thing is that our conscious choices are so limited, for one thing, and they're also so heavily influenced by external factors that it's so similar to hard determinism. But I do think it's not quite hard determinism where everything is determined, that nothing could have been done differently. I don't quite agree with that, because I do think
I don't think that's like that's not. I'm a hard determinist. I don't think that's what. Like, have you ever watched the debate between Daniel Dennett and Robert Sapolsky?
No, but I have watched some of Robert Sapolsky's stuff. I really like him.
Watch the debate between him and Daniel Dennett, and like you will learn so much in that debate.
I definitely will look for that. You said Daniel Dennett?
Yes, Daniel Dennett. You know, he was one of the four horsemen of the atheism. Daniel
Oh,
Dennett.
okay.
Rest
Yeah,
in
I will
peace.
definitely listen to that. Because Robert Sapolsky, we were talking earlier about the post-brain studies on transgender and gender identity. Actually, Robert Sapolsky is how I found out about that. I did a video on my channel talking about that, and I might have to go back and rewatch that video because
I watched it. It was really good. Thank you.
I
Awesome.
thought it was good too. I was pretty stoked about it, but Johnny had mentioned, he said he watched the video and was confused about my position on the issue, and I thought I made it pretty clear, but apparently I didn't do a good enough job on that, so I might have to look back into that.
I think it was just on my part.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, like you will love that debate. That is my favorite. I'm a Robert Sapolsky like cult worshiper, like almost. He's like I've read his books. I'm reading Determined right now, but I love him. But yeah, I think that's where if we ever can label something objective morality, like if you look at it, like there was a time in human history where we considered sacrificing our children good. That was acceptable. And for some reason, we decided as a society that that's not. Like there are very few people that would actually still abide by that. And it's not just by a choice that they made. It's somehow it seems that our moral system evolved a little bit. Like we came to more understanding about things or whatever. And I think that comes from maybe, there's some root in that. And I think it has to be in nature. Like, I just think it has to be something that, that is determined for us to evolve past that. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. I agree with you 100%. I think there's an argument to be made through the goal that that nature has instilled in us at this point of human evolution, that we all want to live a good life. I tried to bring this up a little bit in the debate with Mark, and I didn't have my notes in front of me, so I wasn't able to really press that issue, but Mark just kind of hand waved that away. But I think it's I'm not being dismissive of Mark or disrespectful. And I also want to say, every time I talk about this, Mark beat me in that debate hands down, and he did an outstanding job. And I'm really grateful that he gave me the opportunity.
It ain't about winning and losing anyway, but Mark just didn't want you to deflect off of he was sticking to the arguments. Like,
you didn't have a point scoring system, so I don't know who won.
I thought you did great, though. I would not want to debate Mark on much of anything, actually.
He's good.
He didn't have a syllogism, though, did he?
No, he just did his odd problem and the cat analogy, but he was really hammered. His whole argument was hammered down to the is-ought problem. But but I don't think, in my defense about the thing, I don't think that Mark really bolstered his own argument for subjective morality. I think he just focused on attacking objective morality.
Yeah,
so that is one thing that kind of helped even the playing field. If he would have hammered down on defending and really bolstering subjective morality, that would have been really interesting for me to see, because that's one of the problems I see with subjective morality. And I brought that up in the debate, is that, you have to make your own argument, right? You've got to actually connect subjective morality to what we see in human behavior. And it's been pointed out in philosophy that there really isn't a very good causal link between emotivism or non-cognitivism or moral relativity to what we actually see with universal principles. Like, why does every single human being, and I say every with quotation marks because there's always going to be the outlier, but basically an aversion to murder is a universal proposition that every human being seems to hold. Hurting babies for fun is just something that every human being seems to be against. Well,
it's not just humans, even though. The thing about it is like a lot of other animals, we're seeing, morality that in other animals that we never did even pay attention to, and it seems like Like I watched a video once, not too long ago, about some crocodiles, and there was like a pack of dogs that were like after this one dog. They were wild dogs, you know. And crocodiles actually ferried that dog that was being chased by the other dogs. That dog ferried that dog across the water to get him away from the pack. So like, and that is really weird because thinking about a crocodile having
Yeah.
like a some sort of empathy or I don't know what you call it. You know, it's really weird. Like to think about them, and we don't know that's why they did it, but they didn't eat the dog. You know what I mean? Like they ferried the dog across there to get it away from the other pack of dogs.
That's amazing. I know we have definitely seen stuff more anthropomorphic behavior when it comes to empathy in elephants, for example, and
Yes.
there's some other animals in primates as well. No, I agree with you 100%, Robin. I think that we haven't done enough research in that field, to be honest with you. And it's hard. I mean, there's so many things to study in science, right? And it's also not easy because we don't necessarily understand human empathy yet, you know, so
Yeah.
to try and track it into animal behavior, you know, and of course humans are animals, but you know what I mean by that, lower evolved animals and stuff like that. But I agree with you 100%. I do think there is this natural law, and I think that humans all living, and it may be all living creatures want to live a good life, but I definitely think it's true with humans because we have the ability for introspection and we value self-respect. And so, although I think that many people, if not most people, are confused about how to attain self-respect, I think we all ultimately desire to have this and to have this good life. And I think that morality gives us a working model of how we can best cooperate, which we're a cooperative species. And so that's paramount to human flourishing and to how to attain this good life, because we can attain self-respect. You live a moral life, and I don't mean religious morals, obviously. I'm talking about true morals, the very basic stuff of reciprocity, how we treat people like we want to be treated. Yeah, exactly. Not murdering, not stealing, that kind of stuff.
I was going to say something about elephants, but I forgot.
Well, here's the thing, and that's why I think religion is so harmful to our species. Is because I think that like as society has evolved, like getting rid of slavery and getting, you know, not stoning people and stuff, as our morals have evolved in society, we still though have a group of people who are using a book of thousands of year ago morals and trying to implement, like trying to integrate that into our, and so it feels like it's a holding of back, like because it confuses them too. Like it's you know, instead of doing what they would think was right or something like that, or you know, then they want to go back and say, but God says that's wrong, and so we should be against it. Like gay marriage, just say, you know, take gay marriage, like, you know, they still want to go back and say, but God condemned this, or God says this is wrong.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that religion holds us back.
It does.
As a society. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like these people, they believe in this stuff, and they go back to a, you know, essentially what is a like a late early Iron Age book about all these things that their God has supposedly said. It's their ancient teachings. They're teachings from that long ago. Why should we keep trying to use those teachings when our morals are so much better now? Because now we don't stone people. Yeah, at least in the United States, we don't stone people to death anymore. We don't do this weird thing where if a woman gets married but her husband thinks she's not a virgin, we like see if she bled on her sheet. We don't do that, and that's weird. We don't do that. We don't own slaves, which is, I mean, thank goodness we don't own slaves. You know, that's moved away from all that.
That's why I fight so hard against religion.
Yeah, me too.
They just keep wanting to drag us back.
Yeah, we're past all that bullshit, and there's no point in going back to it.
Yeah.
All right, Objective. I'm gonna have to get going. I had a really great time today. Do you want to promote our show next Sunday?
Yeah. Now, which prophecy did you have in mind?
I do not know. Maybe Psalm 22.
Okay, I will. Confirm that with me. But for right now, we're definitely. So we do this failed prophecy series on the first Sunday of every month, and I just want to thank JonnyB for all of his hard work. That slideshow you put together was great.
Thank you.
That made it really nice to have those visual cues, and I know that's a lot of work you put into that. So that
Thank
definitely, if you do those, that does make the show a little bit better for, I
Yeah.
think, the viewing audience. But I really appreciate all your hard work and research into that.
Thank you. I
So
really
right now, it sounds like we might do Psalms 22,
appreciate it.
but we will confirm that. We'll definitely be doing the show on that. We do that series the first Sunday of every month. So, Johnny, thank you so much for stopping by.
Of
It's
course,
good
Nate.
meeting you, Johnny.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you, Robin. You have a good one, right? Bye, deconverted man. You be good.
Later, Johnny.
Later, man.
He's Johnny, he says, and smiles in his special way. Johnny.
In his special way.
DM is like
It's a song. It's a song. It's a real song. I didn't make it up. It's a song.
He's
Bye, y'all. See y'all.
It's called Who's Johnny?
Traveling musical.
See y'all.
But I only remember the Weird Al version, so.
I do have another debate coming up, though, OE. I wonder what you think about this. And I'm trying to find an opponent for another one.
I'll debate you. No.
I've got a debate. Should Christians support the Second Amendment? And I've really worked up a really good argument for that. About they should not. Like, yeah.
Live by the gun, die by the gun.
And the thing about it is, I've got a debate opponent for that one because I kind of shamed Stephen, the same guy that I debated on the United States, into debating me on that topic. He doesn't really like it though. But I'm working on one for should Christians support ICE?
Yeah, if they fail, you could say that they shot themselves in the foot.
One thing I do actually want to ask you about that, Robin, but before I jump off of this last topic, I want to make one more comment. Johnny had brought this up. I don't know if it was when we were live or if it was when we were backstage, but Johnny had said, I think it was when we were backstage, that most Christians, we were talking about the cognitive dissonance, about how they double down on these claims that are just so obviously false. And like, there's no evidence for evolution, kind of nonsense and stuff. And, but Johnny said, we were talking about the morality issue and the ethics and behavior of Christians and stuff like that. And he said that he thinks that most Christians ultimately would not, like, if some Christian leader, their pastor or whatever, said, "Hey, God told me we have to go to the atheist or the bar or the strip club and murder everybody," or something like that. Most Christians would actually not do that, even if they thought the pastor was talking to God. They might say, "Yes, if God told me to do this, I'm going to go kill babies or whatever." But I think Johnny's right that most people, when push came to shove, what they say they would do and what they would actually do are probably different, because gay marriage, for example, or abortion, these issues were voted on. And the significant majority of people, not just in this country, but in the world, are religious. So if they really, really, really believe those things, gay marriage and abortion never would have been legalized, right? Because the majority of the people, they had to get some votes from religious people to get those things to pass.
Well, abortion, passed through the Supreme Court, which is like, I hate to see it get overturned because, I knew it was going to hurt a lot of women, but it actually wasn't something that we voted for.
Okay.
Like, it was like Roe v. Wade was ruled on by Supreme Court. So they created a right. Now, the thing about it is we had 50 years, though, as a society to turn that into law. And that's one reason why, like, and I don't like the justices now, like Amy Coney Barrett. She came on there and was, one of the ones that came on there to overturn Roe v. Wade. But when they were going to do the gay marriage, which they ended up not even voting on as a court, but they didn't have a good case that came through. The woman from Kentucky has like 4 husbands, and she cheated on this one and married that one and all kinds of crap. So she's not exactly a moral guide for how biblical marriage should be. But I don't like Amy Coney Barrett in her book. She talks about that. That because we passed gay marriage, like after the Supreme Court passed it and allowed it, then we actually codified it into law. So it was like it went through the House and the Senate and was signed by the president. So it's something that's codified into law now. And so actually that is sort of the people deciding that was good. That was okay.
I appreciate the distinction. Yeah, I appreciate you clarifying that, because you're right about that. The abortion and gay marriage were separate issues, and gay marriage did start in the courts.
Yes, it did.
That did go to the people, right? Okay.
One law, or I don't know, maybe multiple laws that I think that I don't know any. I don't know this stuff, but I've just been. It's been coming across my thing more and more with the subscription services for everything is beyond the pale at this point. It's just like you don't own anything, and this car has a heater, but the software, you have to pay for the update or it won't heat your car. It's like
that is capitalism.
Yeah,
we live in a capitalistic.
No, that's not. That's
we live in everything's about money in a capitalist society, like the way our capitalism is set up.
Well, that. I mean, we needed some law about that. I don't know, but yeah, I was like, oh, that's bad.
Well, our lawmakers allow people to exploit us. That they don't protect us. They allow corporations to exploit us. They allow corporations to exploit our most vulnerable, the elderly, the veterans.
No, don't give me. Oh man, the vets. Yeah, the VA. Let me complain about that for a moment. So they decided there's some poll or there's some survey, which I don't know what the name of it is or who did it, and I don't believe that there is a survey, but they told me that there's been a survey done that showed that ongoing therapy was actually harmful to people and therefore they're going to have this other thing where they just read a chart that's like, hey, the thing that you're doing, don't do that anymore. Yeah, just stop doing that.
Now, are you talking, just real quick, I want to follow what you're saying. Are you talking about like PTSD type therapy? Or
no, any therapy, any and all therapy, long-term therapy, according to this VA that I have. It was like, oh no, we did some. There's been some scientific study. Yeah, right. Of course, they didn't say who did it or whatever its name is. And I was like, I'm not going to ask because they're not going to know. And it's just going to irritate me. I'm going to get in a fight with these people. But, that long-term therapy is not, it's more harm than good, that you can become addicted to it or whatever. And I've been in therapy like almost my entire life, and it's been very helpful. And it's helped me through a lot of things that I wouldn't have been through. But, some study, right. And so then they had this thing where it's like, okay, with OCD, there's this guy, he read through this chart that's like, just do the thing that, you don't want to do. Just do it. Just do it. That's what the chart says, just to do it. And I'm like, well, I know exposure therapy is a thing, but you can't just tell me to just do it. That's not anything. I mean,
isn't
why
that just
do
like
I need
throwing people in the deep end of the pool, basically? Like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
And I'm like, you don't even need a psychologist to tell you this chart, because he's literally reading this PDF file, and I'm like, what the bleep is this? And the guy's room was messy and all this, and that irritated me and made me mad, and and it's just like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not going to get any help from these guys. Great, wonderful. So I got to figure out my own way to pay for therapy, I guess. I don't know.
No, I want to just clarify. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I maybe haven't had enough coffee. I want to make sure. So we're talking about mental, emotional, and physical therapy, or just
just mental.
Oh, okay. That was.
Physical therapy. There, yeah, that's fine.
I was so confused.
That
coverage is getting, they're scaling down that coverage and all that too, of course.
This is why I tell you all the time that everything's politics. Okay.
I don't know how to deal with that stuff.
I know, but you're dealing with the repercussions of politics, because we have a guy with a brain worm who's leading the health of the country right now, and we have a white nationalist, like dude who would never even be able to hold his job if he hadn't been appointed this, running the Pentagon. And so like this is why everything is that boils down to politics eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to ask some questions about that, because as I've been open and honest to tell my audience and anybody else, I am really ignorant about a lot of the political stuff, because I'm an independent centrist, really hard in the middle and pretty firm. I could pull probably, if you listed 5 issues or 10 issues, whatever, I could probably pull 5 from the right and 5 from the left that I agree with. I have a really hard time with the extreme nature of where politics are these days. And I want to ask you about a question about ICE. I'm probably just setting myself up to piss everybody off. So please, everybody, unsubscribe now. Just get it over with. But with the ICE situation, I feel like, and again, I admit that I'm ignorant about stuff, so you guys probably know more about it than I do. But I feel like so much of what's becoming really problematic with this situation is actually a result of politicians and media getting people really riled up using really extreme language like Nazis and war and stuff like that. Like, I really feel like that's justifying people's extreme behavior, and I could be wrong about that, but what do you think about that?
I think that a lot of people have been denying what it was for a long time, but we saw people got to remember, the Nazis did not start out with concentration camps. That's not how 1930s Germany went, 1940s Germany. You know what I mean? There was a buildup. And so we've been, like, some of us have been watching this buildup for a while and seeing how, if you've never studied the history of the rise of the Nazi Party, which I have, then you don't see these little bitty changes that are being made. But I don't think that Trump is necessarily a let's put it this way. Like, Obama deported more people than Trump.
Right.
Okay. Do you ever remember us having this terror in our streets during Obama?
No, but I don't remember media reporting on it like this, like calling him a racist.
Because it was not a terroristic action like what it is now. Like they and like ICE has recruited people from the January 6th, insurrectionists, people who were violent. They attacked police officers that day. You know what I mean? So, and now they're working as federal agents. They're untrained. They're masked. You know, like no other police officer is going to come to your house wearing a mask. But they're terrorizing people, and they're like they're grabbing people. Like, okay, a lot of these people, everybody wants to give Biden a hard time about the integration. Okay, we have an immigration law. It's been in effect. It was like 1950 something is when it was passed, but it's changed. Like, it's been amended like 3 times. I think the last amendment was in 96 or something like that. But anyway, we have an immigration law under Trump. When he went in there, when they closed the border because of COVID and stuff, he got to do that because of COVID. Like, that was a special instance that we got to do that. So Biden tried to keep that in place, and the Supreme Court overturned it. So once Biden as president, his job is to make sure that the law is followed as written. And so when they bitch about Biden letting everybody come in here, Biden was allowing people to come in according to what the law says. Like, and you can file for asylum. And a lot of these asylum seekers, now that they've came in here, are being arrested at their hearings. Like, they're showing up for their hearings like they're supposed to. And they're being grabbed by ICE. And not only are they being deported, they're being deported to countries they don't even live in. They never have been to. They're being put in camps, like ICE prison, like prison camps. It's just like, that's the violence. That's the terror. And that's why they're being called Nazis, because the Nazis used terror to bring the German people in line with what they wanted them to be like. You know what I mean? That's why the German people didn't speak up, is because the Nazis used terror and fear to silence the people. And
There are two things I'd like to ask you about, because historically, I was actually in Southern California when the Rodney King riots happened,
Yeah.
and I was also living in Portland when the BLM riots happened, and both of those situations were in what I felt was a justified cause in both situations. I felt like
yes,
Rodney King was obviously assaulted. There was no justification for that. And then the George Floyd thing, that was obviously murder. There's no way around it. And people try to paint it like, oh, he was a drug addict, which he clearly was. I mean, he was not a good dude.
Yeah,
I don't think people should be, like worshiping this guy or some kind of righteous human being, but that doesn't mean he deserved to get killed. And I think it was a clear case of, in Rodney King's situation, absolutely about race. I don't know if it was necessarily with the George Floyd thing, if race had played a part in that, or if it was just ignorant police or what, but it was unjustified no matter what. But unfortunately, and more recently, like take the BLM thing, for example, but same thing with the Rodney King riots, people stand up for, I should say, a cause that I agree with 100%, and use that as motivation to literally destroy people's private property that were probably innocent and had absolutely nothing to do with it, don't have a racist bone in their body. I mean, with the BLM stuff in the downtown Portland area, I would say half, if not more than half, of the businesses and pieces of private property that were damaged in those riots were businesses and private property owned by people of color and immigrants. Yes. And I mean, it was just, I'm watching this happen and I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck are you guys doing right now?
Well, I mean, like, I think there's bad actors that join, like anytime you have something like that right there, you're going to have bad actors that come in that exploit that. That's, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. And I think I agree with you, but I don't think that, I mean, again, I could be wrong because I don't watch all the news and stuff, but I don't think, and while I do agree with what you're saying to a degree, I don't think that covers all the damage. I don't think it's a handful of people who are like, oh, look, we can take advantage of this and just go start stealing and robbing people. I think that, yeah, that does account for some of the damage, but I think that some of these people are so riled up and so emotionally charged that they are not thinking clearly about who they're even hurting anymore.
Yeah, we know, like, we've studied this before, of what it's like when you get into like a group, like like you get people riled up in a group setting. I mean, it's like mass
hysteria.
Yeah, and so that's something that you kind of have to avoid. People just get like they get, like you said, mass hysteria, and people will do things when they're involved in mass hysteria that they would never have done probably in their lives, and so it's hard. Like it is hard, but we got to look back at look at Martin Luther King and the civil rights protests.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, the peaceful, and I agree with all that. I know that a lot of people say that doesn't work, but it does. It does, because once you start rioting, you turn public opinion off of your side.
Yep.
Like you don't keep public opinion, and the justice doesn't always depend upon right and wrong. It depends a lot upon public opinion.
Right. You are so right.
And once you lose public opinion, it's hard to ever get it back. That's why I feel like Minnesota, the BLM riots, some of them were I don't know that how many of them people were actually BLM people, or they were just there for the riots or whatever. I think that there was a lot, but when you oppress people in the way that the Black community has been oppressed for so long, and like the policing of the Black community should have been addressed a long time ago. It's, if you are Black in this country, you are way more, like 3 times more likely to get pulled over in the daytime. At nighttime, it goes back down into normal because they cannot see the color of the driver of the car. But like during the day, the stop rates by police are way higher for Black people than they are for white people. And that's because they can see the color of your skin through the car, see what color skin you've got. And that's a real problem that we just have not addressed, that our society just kind of just hand waves away, and it builds up in people. And it causes, and like there's such a wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots right now, that it's eventually it's going to be just not black people riding. There's going to be poor white people riding too.
I'd like to actually, before it gets too far, I want to address two different things that you mentioned there, because they're both key elements. But I'd like to just share a very, very short story with you of my own personal experience. I've never talked to anybody about this on the internet before, actually, but because I don't want people to think I'm virtue signaling, or there's just so much bullshit on the internet anymore. But it's a true story. When after my father had been murdered, I got moved out to the country, and I had grown up in the city my whole life. I've been around a lot of the kids that went to my school were Asian, different types of like Chinese, Japanese, Thai, and stuff like that. A lot of black people, Hispanic people. So it was a really mixed. I was just used to being around diversity. And my father, before he was murdered, he was very just accepting, good human being. Like there wasn't a mean bone in his body. He was such a solid dude. And so I never was exposed to any kind of racism as a child. It was probably going on around me. Wasn't just unaware of it. Right. So I get moved out to the country, and it was in the summertime. So school wasn't in yet. And it was this little shitty ass trailer park. And there was a black kid had moved in right across the dirt. It's not even a fucking street, the dirt road there in the park. And for me, that was just normal, right? So I went over to introduce myself to him, asked if he wanted to play some football with us and stuff. And we became best friends. We were the same age, and it was way out in the country. So like neighbors were like a mile down the road type of thing, like it's just so strange to even think about those times, because I've been in the city almost my whole life. And it was so far out there. But anyway, so we just became absolutely like best friends. And in fact, his father had committed suicide. And so he and I had so much in common. You know what I mean? His mom took me in like a second mom and stuff. And we go to school, and it turns out he's the only black kid in the whole fucking school. It was so weird. And we went through a lot of violence at first. Now, I've studied martial arts my whole life. My dad taught me how to wrestle and stuff, so we didn't have too much problem defending ourselves and stuff. And we actually became very popular. You beat up a couple kids, and the chicks start to like you, whatever. So no big deal. The problem is we were going out one night to play basketball, and we were looking for a court that was going to be lit up out in the country. Is really hard to find. So we're way out in the fucking boonies, and some cops pulled us over, and those motherfuckers. We were just kids. I'm talking like just barely old enough to have a driver's license. Maybe my buddy was a little older than I was. And so not even like 14, 15. It was right before I ended up moving out on the streets. And I was sitting in the passenger seat, had my seatbelt on and stuff. No drugs, no alcohol. We didn't even smoke. We didn't do any of that stuff. No illegal activity at all. And they had my buddy out there. I could hear him yelling at him and calling him names. And just, he was out there for 15, 20 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, this is fucked up. And I was getting more mad and thinking about those asshole kids at school that we were, fighting with and stuff like that. So they finally let my buddy go, and he gets in the car, and I was steaming mad, and I'm shaking my head and stuff. I'll never forget this. And a cop who was standing right outside my window, because I'm in the passenger seat, he asked me, he goes, "You got something to say, son?" And my buddy looks over at me and says, "Please, Dan, don't go out. Please don't say anything." And I sure as shit did. I said, "Yeah, I got something to say." And he says, "Well, come on out here." And so I got out of the car, and I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I guess because I was white, I figured I'd be okay. And there was like 7, 8 cops out there, and I fucking tore into them. I told them I said, and I wasn't like calling them motherfuckers or anything. I was lecturing them like I was their mother or the father. I was like, "You guys are being racist, and this is why people call you guys pigs, and you're supposed to be defending people and all this stuff," And I was reading them the riot act up one side, down the other, and all of a sudden they just swarmed in on me. I mean, it was like, and I'm just this tiny little kid, and these are adult cops with fucking guns, and I'll never forget. In fact, I actually have PTSD from this even a little bit today. I'll never forget the feeling of, on my shoulder and my back, I could feel their badges on their chest. That's how close in they just literally swarmed in on me. And I thought, oh fuck, I'm in big trouble right now. And the head cop, his name is Officer King, and I hope he catches this video someday, because he's a motherfucker. He's the head guy, and he said, hold on. And he looked at me right in the eye, and he said, you know what? He says, you're right. Everything you said is absolutely right. And he says, I'm going to tell you something else. He says, if I ever catch you hanging out with Negroes again, and he didn't say Negro, you know what he said?
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to take you out in the woods, and I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to bury you, and there's not a fucking goddamn thing you can do about it. And I shit my pants. I literally shit my pants. In fact, I'm not trying to make excuses for my illegal activity, but I got into a really bad high-speed police chase one time, and I do attribute some of that PTSD to that situation. Like, I just went into panic mode. The
I listened to your story. I listened to your story the other day. That
was wild. Yeah,
that was such a good. I know, but you have such like you talking about your dad getting killed and everything. That just broke my heart. But yeah, I mean, you've done good from what I could tell. You've really turned your life around, and that's great.
Well, I appreciate the support on that video. I'm actually really proud of that video. I didn't do it to glorify myself or my behaviors. I did it because I've been talking to a lot of people who are anti-natalist, and there is a value to overcoming these hard times and stuff. But at any rate, like I said, so I do have firsthand experience of seeing how Black people get treated. And
they used fear, like they used fear on you too.
Oh, I was scared shitless. I was absolutely, I shit my pants. I was actually, if I wasn't so scared, I would have literally shit my pants, but my asshole was puckered so tight.
See, that's why that like these, like standing up against ICE, why so many people coming out is because that's how they control, that's how they do it. That's how they allow that kind of behavior to continue, is because they silence people into fear. I mean, fear people into silence. And that's what they're doing with like killing Alex Petty and Renee Good. That's fear. That's like, you should not be out here, and they're going through, like, they could go, what they're doing is inhumane the way they're doing it. They're stopping school buses and taking kids off of school buses and like, none of that has to be done that way. I'm all for removing violent criminals. Like, I don't have a problem with immigrants, but I guess, I'm not the only person in this country. I don't have a problem with immigrants being here. I think that we have a lot of work that Americans don't want to do and that immigrants do, and I appreciate them for it. And I think that they benefit our economy and they benefit our society. And I think that diversity is good. I think that anytime you've got and I think that a whole lot of this stems from a mindset of this: America is a white country and everybody else is a second-class citizen. And that's kind of gross.
It is. It is. And I wanted to touch on two things that you had brought up that before I forget. And one of them is just back to what we were talking about with the violence issue. So in Portland, in downtown Portland, outside the ICE building, I actually went down there a couple of times to see for myself. And so I understand this is anecdotal, but people can check independent media coverage of what was going on down there. You don't have to take my word for it. It's on the internet. It's all over the internet. And those protesters, those ICE protesters, I think a lot of them were just legitimate human beings who wanted to try and stand up for what they felt was, discrimination against immigrants and stuff like that. And I got no problem with that. In fact, I support that. The problem is very much in line, and it wasn't nearly like the BLM riots or the Rodney King stuff we're talking about. It was not on that level, but there were definitely assaults that were happening and vandalism and stuff like that. There is a low-income family apartment complex right kitty corner to the ICE building, and those protesters were going 24 hours a day for like 3, almost 4 months straight, literally banging shit, noise. I mean, you wouldn't believe it was going on down there. And I understand they're protesting the ICE people, but unfortunately there are real human beings that are in a very destitute situation living there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were actually immigrants. And one mother, multiple people came down, but I know there's a story, but one mother actually came down and begged those people to please, after like 11 o'clock midnight, will you please stop? I have kids that are trying to go to school. I've got a job I've got to go to, and it's a low-income apartment complex. And the people were basically told her to F off. They're like, too bad for you. And I know there were some interviews that were being done, and, independent news media and even maybe more conservative news media were saying, hey, don't you care about these other innocent people that you're affecting? And the response was, well, if you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, basically, to paraphrase it,
Yeah.
And this is the problem that I have with this situation. And the Portland police issued a statement saying they would not respond to police calls within a 2-block or something like that radius of the ICE building because they didn't want to make it look like they were helping ICE at all. The governor of Oregon, actually, I believe it was the governor, not it was the mayor, the governor, I think it was Kotek or whatever the lady's name is. She did a news piece real quick on the local news to try and show Trump because he was talking about bringing the National Guard. So she went on a walk in the middle of the day with her wife, and their walk they took was 1.5 miles away from where all the protests were happening. And the news media put it out like she was walking around the ICE building and there's no protesters out here. There's no noise out here. And she deliberately did that, like I said, 1.5 miles away from where that was happening, looking at look how peaceful our city is. We don't need the National Guard here and stuff like that. And it was so manipulative and dishonest. And that's the kind of issue that I have with how this whole thing is being spun, despite what I think about immigration, because I actually support immigration. But it's like when you use these kind of tactics to try and rile people up and to deceive people, that's the issue that I have with the whole thing is if you were really standing for something that was right, you shouldn't need to lie about it or to get people to be violent about it. You know what I mean?
I agree. And, both sides do that though. Like I know that like during a lot of times Fox News will show clips from riots that where they actually discovered that they weren't even from America. And they were showing those kind of riots nightly to the people that watched their channel, and they weren't even America. They weren't even the riots that happened in America. So they were. So that's a both sides issue because everything is partisan now. It's became to be on the Democratic side to appear to support deportation of immigrants is like it puts you against the whole constituency, like almost, like it's became such a partisan thing.
Well, I do agree with you 100%. That's one of the reasons I stay out of politics is because, like I said, I don't think the right is any better than the left at all. I just see it on both sides. So I agree with you 100%, sister. I absolutely agree. The right does spin the narrative the other way. All the immigrants are child rapists or murderers or whatever. That's total bullshit.
Yeah, because we have like crime. We know from statistics that crime is very rarely committed by immigrants. Actually,
that's right, and it's logical. You can make the logical argument too. These people want to fly under the radar. They want to be here, just work and make that money. They do not want the attention of committing crimes, irregardless of if they are more ethical or moral isn't even a question. It's the fact that they are highly motivated to stay out of public view and not be drawing attention to themselves.
Exactly. And they take the case like Lake and Riley, Riley or whatever. It was a shame. Like it is. She was murdered by an immigrant, but they take that and they use that as like that anecdotal case as a basis for this kind of stuff. And you cannot take the facts you take the statistics and show them to them of what crime is committed by, if we are to get rid of all the crime people, like cis white men are like the largest committers of violent crime in the United States. White Christian men, actually, too. So, but that doesn't mean that we are to deport all the white Christian men either. So, So you just can't let the news, like, I don't watch the nightly news because I think they've done a terrible job on both sides of presenting what is actually going on. But, you just have to kind of pay attention to the facts, and not enough people in this country right now care about facts.
No, and I think this touches on one last thing I want, and I'd like to have Steve chime into this too, because it's an interesting conversation. I know we're getting a lot of attention around the world. I'm on another platform where I've met a lot of really nice people. I was talking to Johnny about this. I was trying to just promote my YouTube channel on different social media platforms, and I ended up on a platform where most of the people are from overseas, and I was amazed at how much attention America is getting with these different situations that are happening with immigration in particular. I was blown away so many people and the opinions that people have about the situation when they're not even living here really
Well,
shocked me as
they
well.
see it. They see it. They just see chaos.
It does. It is,
and
and it is chaotic.
yeah, and economic chaos too for them. You know, all this like tariffing and just like I don't know. It's just
you mentioned economics, and that's the last point I want to touch on. I'm sorry I've cut you off a couple of times, but I try to keep my mind.
No.
I've done too many drugs back in the day, and my brain is not what it used to be. We're not what it should be at this point.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But I have always believed, that the division is between the haves and the have-nots, and you made that comment earlier, and I really think that that's what this is ultimately about. I think when you look at the crime rate, crime statistics, and things like that, there's a direct correlation between economic status, if you will, and crime rates. And they started to segregate these communities. So a lot of the people of color are coming from these low income communities, and people who feel like they don't have resources are going to, not everyone, but they're going to be more inclined because of the determinism we talked about, right? They're going to be far more inclined to commit illegal actions to bring their own equality to the situation.
Yep, I agree. I'll let your guest speak.
Yeah, Steve, what do you think? Is that right, Steve? Right?
Yeah, no worries. That's good. Thank you.
Okay.
How you doing? Good morning.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm really enjoying a conversation with Robin. She's somebody that I've enjoyed hearing from and talking to in the chats and hearing from on other channels. This is the first time she's joined this channel. So as far as a live stream goes, I'm just so honored that she would take time out of her day to join us and share her thoughts. She's a really smart lady. So this is a treat for me.
Yeah, we're just covering easy topics, the easy topics right now.
The easy topics of immigration. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of, I've just kind of popped in and out. So there's the objective morality stuff and there's the immigration stuff. The immigration stuff, I mean, I'm a Kiwi. I'm an immigrant in Japan. And so as an immigrant, I'm actually all for strict controls. And I think that countries have a right, if not or you could say the government has an obligation to its citizens to make it difficult to get in. I'm a firm supporter of that. So that's
I don't know if it would be difficult for a person who's got a good background, but I think that there should be a process. Like there should be a process. I agree. I mean, like I don't think we should just let people just come willy nilly, but I think that we need to set up some sort of system to where we can do it effectively. And I think that like one particular party in this country has spent years making it intentionally harder to try to process like immigrants. And the thing about it is like during Biden, which Biden was following, like I said, the law is already set up. He didn't write the law. So he was just going by with what the law said. But he tried to like pass that new bill to where we would have more judges so they could get these hearings faster. And so people would be put out of the country if their asylum wasn't approved and stuff. And they voted to block that, because they wanted to use immigration as a topic to run on in an election. And the Democrats were set up to agree to this immigration bill, which was far stricter immigration rules than they had ever wanted. But people should have paid attention to it because Biden and them were not seeing that it was going to be a big problem for the United States. And it was a bigger problem than what he kind of projected it to be. It made a difference I think it's what won the election for Trump, actually.
I mean, the way I look at the American situation, it does seem as though the border has been fairly poorly controlled. I think you guys should just, I mean, you can talk about it metaphorically or literally, but you should put up a solid wall.
But we have laws, like we have. Well,
But I mean legal walls as well. You know, administrative walls.
Yeah, but most of the people who are in the United States, undocumented, because I don't like to use the word illegal. Most of the undocumented people in the United States are actually people who came here on visas and overstayed work visas.
So that's illegal.
They're not the people sneaking across the.
Yeah, that's illegal. That's illegal. See, if you
Well,
do that in Japan,
if
you do that in Japan, you'll just get kicked out the next day. They don't mess around here.
Yeah, okay, I call that undocumented, because actually in the United States, that crime that I'm talking about of overstaying your visa is the same crime as getting a speeding ticket. It's not a criminal offense. It's a civic offense. It carries the same, the same kind of punishment as a speeding ticket or a traffic violation. It's not.
What do you mean it carries the same punishment?
Well, it's considered a civic offense. It's
so
not.
If I go to America on a tourist visa and I overstay, what's the punishment?
Well, I mean, like it's a civic offense.
What's the punishment?
Well, I mean, you would probably get deported.
There you
go.
go.
The thing that is you will not be sent to a prison camp or possibly, deported to a country that you've never lived in before. And you should not be treated like you're not a human because you did not actually commit a criminal offense. It's not a crime. So it's not illegal.
But how do you define crime?
A crime, I think that there has to be, to me, in a crime, there has to be a person who was the victim. Like,
no, that's not a crime. That's not a crime.
I think that's right. Like there should be someone who was victimized, either like you took money from them or anyway, you did something that put somebody else or some things. Well, what do you think crime is? Like,
well, crime is a basically in law you've got civil and criminal, and criminal is when the state goes against you, and civil is when you've got two civil parties going at each other.
Well, I mean,
so by definition, if the state goes against you, that's a crime. Well, and there'll be exceptions, of course, but that's basically how it works.
But I'm saying that like overstaying your visa is not considered a criminal offense, though. It's considered a civic offense. That's our law.
Okay, that's fine.
If we don't like that law, we should change that law. But we should not subjectively decide to change that law just whenever we want to, random, willy-nilly. Like, this officer shouldn't get to decide that this is the law today. Like, it should be change the law. If we don't like the law, we have a Congress, we have ways to write legislation and change laws. And instead of doing that, we've got a administration who is ignoring those laws and is.
Can you give a specific example?
Yes, I mean, like they're deporting people to Guatemala or whatever.
What specific law is being ignored?
The fact that overstaying a visa is not a criminal offense. It is a civic offense.
I understand. I'm just you said that the current administration is ignoring laws.
Okay, that is, they're not following immigration law.
What law are they not following?
The law of immigration. It was written 1950 something after the World War II, and it's been changed a couple of times, but it's the federal immigration law for the whole United States.
What law is the current administration? What specific statute is the current administration ignoring when it comes to the way it's acting towards immigration at this point in time?
It is using excessive force against people for civic offenses, and it is deporting people to countries that they don't even.
What's the law that's being ignored? I'm just trying to get to specifics.
I am giving you specifics. I mean,
No,
there's
you're not.
the
I'm
law
asking
is
you for a
huge.
statute.
The law has certain things. I guess I'll read the law to you then.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're looking at that. I'd like to ask.
it's only like
So
a couple hundred pages.
for me, it seems like the conversation, like most conversations, I think you have to start at a fundamental level and decide, how do we feel about the border just starting there. Should we have a border? Should we not have a border? What are the benefits, or is it necessary to have security for the country, so on and so forth. Once we've established, yes, we feel like it's justified to actually set up a border, because without a border you don't have a country, frankly, right? So setting up borders to me makes sense. Then you have to say, okay, how do we want to enforce this border policy? Because if we don't start at the fundamental level and we look at it from the top down, I feel like that's part of what's happening right now, is because when I hear people making the arguments from both sides, there's a lot of top down. Like some people, when you actually ask them, they actually believe they're making the argument from the stance that we shouldn't even have a border. Well, of course they're going to have a problem with immigration laws if they don't think we should have a border. Other people think the border should be completely closed, so of course they think we should deport everybody, so on and so forth. So if we don't start at the bottom and say, should we even have this border, and then work our way up from there, that to me seems to be one of the fundamental disconnects that people are having. I highly support immigration, because this country was founded on immigration, frankly, and it's the diversity is what I think makes America the greatest country in the world. And I don't mean disrespect to any other country. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of great countries out there, but our diversity makes this place a great place to live. I've lived in several states, and I visited even more states in this country, and there's so much variety and so much beauty and so much commerce that comes from all this diversity. And so I think we need to support healthy immigration. But I do think there are safety concerns that should be taken into consideration that would come up without some kind of a border policy. I think we should loosen up the border policy a little bit, because immigration is so fundamental to our financial success, our economic success, as well as just the beauty that comes from having different cultures, art, food, music, all these different things that you could benefit from on the aspect of culture. So I think there's another really great thing about immigration. But the commerce itself, you know, like Robin had mentioned, some of the labor that gets done, a lot of the people here don't want to do it. Immigrants are more than willing to do that, because it gives them a lot more financial resources than doing that same work in their own country would. So there's a lot of real good reasons to support immigration. So I do think that we should loosen it up a little bit. I've got two of the girls that work for me are from Venezuela. The third one did. She just quit recently, thank goodness, because she was such a pill. But I had three girls from Venezuela working for me. And there's another girl, she's from New York, but her husband is actually from Pakistan. And so they're really having to deal with this whole immigration thing, and they're freaking out over what's going on. A lot of it's because what they're seeing in the news. And it costs tens of thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars to become a legal citizen here. I believe it's a few years, the process.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. And that to me is so just unreasonable, because the vast majority of people that are coming into this country, especially across the southern border, do not have thousands of dollars. That's the whole reason they're coming here, for Christ's sake. So it just seems so unnecessarily difficult, in my opinion. I don't think we can justify that cost. But I do think that we do need to have a border. And if we're going to have a border, we need to have laws. And if we do have laws, whatever those laws are, we should be following those laws. And if people have a problem with that, they should go to their local representatives and work their way up the ladder to get the laws amended.
Exactly. We have like our asylum. Okay, in our current Immigration and Naturalization Act, which was passed after World War II, because of the fact that we didn't allow a lot of the Jews to come here when we could have. Individuals can request asylum reaching the border. Okay, once they're granted asylum, they initiate a legal system which allows temporary stay in this country until they have their hearings. Okay, we do not have sufficient amount of judges for these hearings, so now it's turned into their temporary stay ends up being a very long time. But like our ICE officers are grabbing people at their hearings and deporting them. and not deporting them back to the country where they came from, which is not necessarily good to do to anybody, because if they sought asylum from that country for political persecution or whatever, then it's dangerous maybe to send them back to that country. But we should not be sending them to a prison camp somewhere, to a different country. If they were following the rules, they're showing up for their asylum hearing. That means that they're following the rules that was set when they came in seeking asylum. I just I have problems with that kind of that right there. That's not humane. That's not that's not what I want. That's not what I want my country to be like. I
take your point, and I'm not going to disagree with it. But again, for that kind of discussion, from my perspective, for that kind of discussion to be productive, I need statistics. I don't care about what the media says or what the media chooses to amplify. Because at the moment, obviously, the media is amplifying the whole ICE situation because of what happened to Renee Good and Alex Pretty. So that's just being blasted everywhere. That to me is not relevant information, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the ideal though that they're masked for one thing. That's one of the main problems I have with them, masked. They're
being doxxed and they're being hunted down by people who are anti-ICE.
But why? Because we don't hunt down regular police officers. I
can offer one possible reason.
Why?
It is possible that the narrative that the media is fomenting is just messing with people's heads, that they believe they're in a Nazi occupied state.
Okay, but I mean, that's what we.
That's a possible explanation. That's a possible explanation.
Yeah, but the media is responding to what. I think that we are pretty close to that. Like I said, I told LE, I've studied the what happened in 1930s and 40s Germany. I know the little side, the Nazis did not go to concentration camps immediately. That's not what happened. It was a gradual process of eroding of democratic and putting fear in the press and putting fear in protesting and putting fear in just people who speak up. And that's what this administration is intentionally trying to do. They're trying to use fear. Trump is arresting, he's wanting to get nighttime comedians kicked off the air by the FCC. That's using a government entity to censor people who talk bad about him, that make fun of him. And that is what... I don't know what is more Nazi-like than that right there. I don't understand why people want to pretend like this is not. I know calling people Nazis all the time is probably, and I don't use the word Nazi because I don't really think they're Nazis, because that was a specific group of people. I do think though that there is a large number of people in this administration who are seeking a fascist state in this country.
I actually did. I don't know if I did a whole video about it or not, but I know I specifically brought this up in one of the videos that I had done. Might have been that video I did about transgender. I think that actually was that video. So I did a video trying to explain some of the science behind the transgender thing. And one of the things I did talk about, because I do try to be fair in my criticisms of how I levy them and balanced. And I also do open myself up to criticism. If anybody hears something I say, and I'll repeat this right now, I say this a lot, please push back. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong. I appreciate it if people do it politely, but I don't. The only rule I have about politeness is how you treat other people on my channel, in chats and things like that. But as far as myself goes, I'm not a sensitive person. You can pretty much say whatever to me directly. But I do respond better to polite pushback, but I want people to challenge each other's ideas. And so I try to look at both sides of things. And one of the issues that I do have, and I think it does happen on both sides, it's not a left or right thing, it's both, but we are throwing these words around so flippantly these days that not only have they lost their effect, but it's having the counter, the exact opposite effect that people want. And I'm thinking specifically of something like the word transphobe. I know that at first, when anybody who is a bigot was being referred to as a transphobe, that sounded like really bad, because a phobia is something that no rational person wants to be accused of having, right? A phobia. My wife has a phobia of spiders, for example. It's kind of silly, but whatever it is, and so we know a phobia is an unfounded or unbased fear of something, right? Well,
or it can
bigotry,
be an aversion too. It can be an aversion too. That's what.
an aversion, sure, but unfound, unreasonable, right? And so nobody wants to be thought of as being unreasonable. And bigotry, there can be some fears of degradation of the traditional family home or something like that can be associated with bigotry, but a lot of it has to just do with ignorance and not fear per se, right? And so what happened is people were calling everybody who's a bigot a transphobe, and then they started calling anybody on the right a transphobe, and then pretty soon it was flying around so much that I was coming across stuff on social media where conservatives, far right-wing conservatives, were actually taking it as a compliment. They were literally saying, hey, that's great. I absolutely, will wear that badge proudly. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the exact opposite thing that you want. When you call somebody a Nazi or a bigot or a racist or whatever it might be, or a communist, if we're going to flip the script to the other side, if you start calling people these names, this name should have an impact on somebody. It should cause somebody to stop what they're doing long enough and say, wow, my view and public perception, this is not what I want to be seen as, but if it gets used so much that it loses its effect and people are actually wearing these labels proudly, and that's what I see happening. So I really have an aversion to all this talk about Nazis and phobes and communists and all this other stuff, socialists and et cetera, because those words, if they don't land with a certain impact, then they are losing their effect, and language is losing its effect, and where people are losing public accountability.
I don't think those words, I don't think people are wearing those labels with pride or whatever. I just think it's mockery, because as you say, the sting has been taken out of the words. And the problem is now with words like that, excuse me, I'm kind of on the back end of a cold here. The problem is, of course, that because those words have just been thrown around as basically character assassination, we don't have words anymore to describe Nazis or racists. So that's silly. I would like to challenge you though on something you said just a couple of seconds ago, OE. Talking about diversity being like a core part of your success in your country.
Yes.
Economically, you said that diversity is an important part of America's economic success. Is that correct?
I think yes. I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's my view.
Okay, see, I'm not sure that you can create that causal connection, because Japan arose after World War II to be an economic powerhouse, number 2 in the world, and it didn't have any diversity, like zero.
Yeah, but that's not the United States.
Yeah, I know. The only point I'm making is that trying to create a causal connection between those two things, I'm not sure you can do that.
Well, I mean,
Because if I can show you another place where there is zero diversity, but the economy of the country just went from fucking bottom level all the way up to the top within a space of 50 years, then that's a challenge to that hypothesis.
I think that's a reasonable challenge.
I'm basing what I'm saying on history.
Well, I would say, in defense of my statement, as a business owner myself, and living in a capitalist system, the cheapest that I can make my product or provide my service because of competition, because of the competition that capitalism provides, right? The better it is for me, the more chance I have at success. And when immigration, ultimately, people are willing to work for a lower wage, which benefits the small business owner in particular. And to prop up small business is ultimately a huge part of what's propped up American economy. The big business is only a small part of the picture. The small businesses are a huge part of what really builds our economy, because it gives people much cheaper access to goods and services, which is why big business is such a threat to our overall success, in my opinion. That would be how I would relate it directly to our situation.
And I worked for the Japanese, and I know this for a fact, that the Japanese rose to being a powerhouse because they had a lot of help. Like,
that was going to be my question about how much does subsidy play into
the
that.
United States invested a lot into helping Japan create its economy, a lot. But like the history of our country shows the benefit that like we are a country of immigrants. We are a country of immigrants, and you know, every bit of that culture has helped us become a more pluralistic country. I don't see like there is no real American because none of us except for like the natives, like you know, and they're even trying to deport Native Americans. Like these people's ancestors were here before the boat landed. You know, when Christopher Columbus discovered a country where people actually lived already. But you know, it like we did the same thing to the Irish in the early 20s.
What Native Americans are they? So you're saying the government now is trying to deport Native Americans whose ancestry goes way back to
Yes,
before
they
the
have
settlers
for
came.
instance. I'll look it up here. But yes, and there's actually I've seen Americans that, like I see videos where they'll tell Native Americans to go back where they come from. I'm like, this is where they come from.
Is that
The
the
other thing
government
I would
saying
say
that, or
about-
is that just some loser in a
Well, the other thing, real quick,
with a
I would
video
say,
camera?
Steve, to your comment about the immigration, the other aspect of it is supporting diversity and immigration has been a huge encouragement for more diversity to grow. And we have benefits of doctors, scientists, and all these other people that really prop up the infrastructure and help to make us a world power that specifically came here because this is the land of opportunity.
I don't deny that you guys are diverse, not at all. I'm presenting an opinion from someone who lives in a completely different situation in a country where the laws are really strict and they don't dick around with this kind of stuff. So in some sense, I mean, I wouldn't laugh. I kind of, maybe I do laugh at it. Like, you know, all the uproar about, oh, they're being unkind to illegal immigrants. I'm like, well, yeah, and come over to another country and see how that works.
Unkind, like sending people for a civil defense to a prison camp, like Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah.
That was the name that they gave one of the detention centers.
I
Alligator
know that.
Alcatraz, and people were getting their pictures made by the sign, and they were celebrating the idea of like those people getting eaten by alligators. You know,
Yeah,
and
but nobody's been eaten by an alligator.
no, they haven't been eaten by an alligator, but that because they closed it, like the court closed it.
Exactly.
But the thing about it is the thought that it was a good idea to do that to people for a civil defense, a civil offense is ridiculous.
But I think you keep on going on about how this is a civil offense. I think
It
that's
is.
Yeah, I know. My point is, I don't think that's an adequate representation. When you say it's not a parking ticket, you get deported. That's not a parking ticket offense.
Yes, but it's a civil. It's still not a criminal offense. It does not carry a prison sentence. Like, just deport them then. Why are we sending them to prison camps? And why are we deporting people that we allowed in here and we granted asylum to because we have asylum laws? Like, they're not following the laws. They're mass people. They're kidnapping.
Yeah, this comes back to what I asked you before. What laws are not being followed?
Okay, if we have asylum law that says that you can be granted asylum and you get a hearing to stay, and you arrest people at their asylum hearing when they show up, you're not following the immigration law.
Yeah. So, and my question to that would be, I'm sorry, I'm just the cynic. So my question to that would be, well, how do you know that in every single one of those cases, there wasn't a legitimate reason to go and take those people into custody?
Okay, all right. Let's take the alligator, the Guatemala or what it was, prison camp down there. Okay, they went down there and there was like 226 or whatever it was inmates down there that had been deported, and 80% of them had no criminal offense, like no criminal background.
How do you know that?
That we were all right. Because that's what we looked up. We searched their names because we didn't even have a list of their names. Like, they didn't even have a list of the people that they took there. why would you take people out of society and just remove them without ever even documenting that you removed them from like where they are in the world?
So is there a list or isn't there?
Yeah, there is. But now,
Okay.
because people went down there and made a list, it wasn't because our government did.
What people? Who?
Reporters mostly.
Okay, so again, yeah, okay. I mean,
I'm trying to look it up. I mean, like
Okay,
this is the problem I have though, is that I'm telling you things that we have actually cases that have happened, and you're just going to what people. I mean, like I understand you want facts, and I wasn't up here ready with facts because this is not where I knew this conversation was going to go. But like it takes very little to actually research this and find it out. And so I'm not making these stories up.
Now, you mentioned statistics. One thing I would just like to mention, and again, I don't know if I'm not sure I bring this up because I'm not promoting any of this stuff. I'm very middle of the road on a lot of this stuff, and I do support immigration. I don't support violent protests, and I don't support the way the left and the right has in the media and the way the politicians have been propping all this stuff up from one side or the other, because I think that the truth is really getting muddied up there. But statistically, I caught a thing from CNN News, and the reporter was interviewing, I think it was the Naomi lady, Christine Naomi, or however you say her name. And the Naomi lady, who's obviously Donald Trump's, cabinet or whatever, or however you say that, his system. And she was saying that over 70% of the people who've been deported have been convicted of serious criminal offenses and child molestation, rape, murder. These were the three top that they listed. And the CNN reporter pushed back and said, no, it's only around 46%. So I always tend to find that the truth is located somewhere in the middle. But let's just say I want to be totally gracious and just grant that number 46%. If that is actually true, and that's coming from the conservative media, right? If that is true, that 46% of are we up to 1 million people yet for Trump? That's 2 terms, right? So I think we're still at several 100,000 in this term since this whole thing started. Let's just say an even number of 1 million people. So 460,000 people that the left wing confirms is child rapist, a murderer, or some other type of sexual assault. Those 3 crimes, right? At that point, if we're getting rid of 460,000 people that are committing those kind of crimes, especially against children, I think human trafficking might have been the child trafficking might have been one of the other ones I mentioned. Those are serious, like the kind of stuff that actually gets me emotionally involved and emotionally charged up. I have a real problem with people that hurt women and children. I have a real problem with that. And so if we're getting ready, if that is true, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, but at that point, because one of the things I said earlier, and I stand by it, I think that immigrants in general are actually statistically far less likely to commit crimes. And Robin and I had discussed that, and she agrees with me. And there's a good reason. You could look at it statistically, and you can even think about it logically. An immigrant, especially an illegal immigrant, wants to fly under the radar, right? They don't want the attention of potentially committing a crime, getting arrested. So I do stand by that statement. But if we were to accept that number, even the conservative number, let's say 460,000 of these people in Trump's first year have committed one of these grotesque actions against women and children, does that justify some of this, but or not? What do you think about that?
Do we first of all, so why do we have any due process on any of this? Like to say they did it, if they committed a crime against a person, an American citizen, a child in America, they should not be deported. They should be in prison. They should have been charged and tried. But okay, here's what I have. The U.S. forcibly removed 66,435 Guatemalans and deported them back to Guatemala. 1,220 had pending criminal charges. Okay, out of 66,435, 1,220 had pending criminal charges.
I think the due
Let's-
process, I agree with you. I don't know if I could take a position on that, because the flip side of that, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here and think about this as objectively as possible. I definitely agree that we need due process. That's our justice system, which I do think needs reformation. I think we need to really rehaul the justice system, because I don't believe in free will. And I think we need to focus a lot more resources on re-educating people than just throwing them in prison. I think we have a really broken system, but let's just call it due process, because that's what the guise is under, right? Yeah, I agree. A due process is important, a court hearing, attorney, and all that kind of stuff. But if we're going to put these people in jail, and already our jail system is so broken because it's underfunded in some ways and funded for the wrong reasons in other ways, we're just adding to that problem. And that problem is ultimately a burden on the taxpayer. Wouldn't it be better for the taxpayer to just get them out of the country and let somebody else put them in prison or whatever? Or again, I'm just trying to kind of play devil's advocate here.
Well, I mean, I think if they come over here and they commit a crime in this country, like if they harm a child or something like that, I think that we have a responsibility to the victim to make sure that they receive justice, some sort of justice, and just deport them out of the United States. Besides that, if we think that there's somebody who's going to harm children, why would we want to ship them off to somebody else's kids?
That's a great point right there, Robin. That is a great point. Why would we want to send that? Don't we care about little kids and women and children in other countries? Fuck, I'm glad you said that, sister. That is a good point.
I think we're getting a bit, in my opinion, we're getting a bit caught up in calling it a civil violation. Because the consequence, my take on all this, if you overstay your visa, then in my opinion, you're committing an act, which, definitionally may or may not be a crime, but you're already overstepping the mark to such a degree that the government can step in and remove you from the country. So,
yes, they can deport you after. Here's the thing: due process.
I understand, but due process again, and I'm a due process extremist. Trust me on that. I'm a Blackstone's ratio guy, but due process is what the law allows. That's what due process is.
No, the due process is what is it's in the Constitution.
Yeah, I know.
It's in our Bill of Rights.
Yep.
So it what the law demands. It doesn't allow it. Like allowing it's not a optional thing. It's not optional.
I understand that. But due process is functionally what the law gives you. That's what it is. There's a difference between that and the idea that, due process means, and, if you talk about jurisprudence, that it should be as difficult as possible for the state to bring charges against you and penalize you either by taking away your freedom or taking away your property. That's a different discussion.
Well, these are considered, according to U.S. Constitution, these are considered inalienable rights. These are inalienable rights.
Sure.
So it's not the law's not allowing.
But are the inalienable rights, are they for citizens or are they for people who overstay their visas?
The due process says persons. That's what it says in the Constitution.
So persons on United States soil, is that what it is?
It just says, yeah. I'll read you the Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
It'll take me a minute.
No problem.
I think the definition of inalienable is that one thing is that you cannot apply it or not apply it based on a person's origin.
No person shall be held to answer for a capital crime without a grand jury, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. It doesn't say no citizen shall be. It says no person shall be held to answer for a capital crime without a grand jury, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, it's talking about a capital crime.
Well, that's the Fifth Amendment. Like for any,
I know. But it's a capital crime is something where you get the death penalty involved.
Well, it does actually qualify everything because it says nor life, liberty, or property.
Yes. Yeah, it's not just for capital crimes. Like due process is something that anybody on American soil is supposed to be guaranteed. Like we're supposed to go through due process, and that is the only problem I have with anything that this country is doing right now. I don't have a problem with them deporting undocumented people. I don't. I think that we should have a better system for people who want to come here and work. I think we should have a better system for people who even want to come here and live, who are law-abiding citizens and contribute to society. I don't have any problem with that. I do not want a all white society. Like that's not what kind of world I want to live in. I think that I don't even see the benefit of that at all. But I do think that we should live by the rules that we supposed to follow, and we should be using due process. Yes, and I don't think we should be rounding up people through terror.
Okay, so we're on the same page with regarding deporting people who have overstayed their visa status.
Yes, I'm fine with that, but I do think that if they've committed a crime in this country, I know that we are responsible for taking care of them if they put them in prison. But I think if they have committed a crime in this country that is like an offense that deserves incarceration, then I think that yes, like we should at least give them due process, and then put them in a facility somewhere. If Trump wants to like have that facility like in a foreign country, I guess that's acceptable, sort of. I don't really know that I think that that's probably the best way to do things, but if that's what he wants to do, then that's okay, I guess. But I don't think that we're not giving these people due process. We're grabbing them off the streets and disappearing them. Like they sent out, they had two planes loaded full of unaccompanied children. Okay, these were children that they had like grabbed like at school. I mean, they're like going into school, stopping school buses and trying to take kids off school buses. Like their parents would never even know what happened to them. And we already know from the first term that Trump had where he split up the families, because the guy that's now over the Homan guy, he's the guy that put the kids in the cages in the first term, and
guy that Obama gave a Medal of Freedom to.
Yeah. I wasn't a big Obama fan either. So just so you know, I think he was not near as bad. I mean, like, I would gladly trade him for Trump right now, but I would trade George Bush for Trump right now too. So, yeah.
Let me, I do have to, my wife is kind of wondering if we're going to get something to eat. So it's been 3 hours, and I've really enjoyed this conversation because it's been educational for me, to be honest with you. You guys are much more informed about these things than I am. And I appreciate you guys taking my questions and helping me sort through all this. What I'd like to do is I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to have the floor to promote any work that you have coming up. I know, Robin, you've got a couple of debates that you're into. You've got a YouTube channel you can mention. So let me start with you, and then I'll go on to Steve and let him have the final word. So, Robin, I'm just going to put you up here. If I do, I think if I hit this button, there we go.
I appreciate it. And it's like, I'm really bad about getting off topic and just ranting on stuff. So you just kind of got to guide me. But I'm Robin Webster. I have a channel that I'm trying to get some debates going and everything. I want to moderate debates, but I am a debater. I will be debating next weekend. I'm not sure on the time. I think it's on Saturday. I will be debating, should Christians support the Second Amendment, and I will be taking the negative position. And I've got one, of course, the one that OE was talking about that was the United States founded on Christianity, and you can find that. Actually, it's not up on my channel yet. It's on Proverbs Guys Ministries channel or on the Kentucky Atheist. And thank you.
I really enjoyed having you on, and I will get a link to Joe's channel, the Kentucky Atheist, so you can find that debate. Robin absolutely killed it. The one piece of advice so far, the only criticism that I can come up with, and I'm trying to be critical as a friend, because I always appreciate when people look at my debates or any of the work I've done and give me an honest feedback. I don't want people to just tell me what something nice because they're trying to be nice to me. I mean, I appreciate people wanting to say my feelings, but I value people's feedback, honest feedback. And the only criticism I can come up with is that, and this is actually coming from Better Than Ember. She had levied this same criticism against me, excuse me, in order to help me with my debates on a debate that I had previous to the one I did with Mark. I had a debate against a Christian nationalist, and I did really well in that debate. But the one criticism that Ember said is that you didn't look at the camera very much, and it's always more impactful when you make eye contact with the camera. So that would be the only thing I noticed in yours is you were reading your notes down in front of you and not looking up to the camera enough. And I know it's kind of tricky because you're reading your notes, you're not really, you know what I mean? So I don't know if there's a way you could maybe face the notes to the screen so it's a little bit more direct contact. But other than that, you absolutely slayed that guy. And I'm surprised he wants to debate you again after that, because he put up a strong argument and you just batted him away like a fly. It was
well, we're friends. Actually, I'm good friends with him. I'm a mod over on that channel. So, and like, we're both kind of starting this new. And so this was kind of one debate for him too. I don't think he realized how strong the argument against him was, but yeah, I know I critiqued myself the same thing. My argument was really good. My presentation was not very good. So yes, I do.
That's just something to shore up the next time. And I do have two people, or I guess 3 people. One guy wants to debate 2 different people. So there's 3 people involved here, 2 different separate debates. And they asked me if I would host and moderate these debates. And I was willing to do it. I've never done that before, but I was willing to do it. But as I'm communicating with these people, my normal streaming schedule isn't really working for one of the guys. And it's the one guy who happens to be in both debates. And I'm not really inclined to change my schedule, what people expect to see my show, just to host this debate. And so I was thinking maybe I should refer him to you. One debate is going to be about, it's a Christian versus a Catholic. And the Christian does not think that Paul should be used. He thinks we should get rid of Paul, all the Gospels of Paul. And so the Catholic obviously doesn't want to do that. So they're going to debate whether or not Paul contradicts Jesus, which could be an interesting debate. The other one is going to be, I have a Muslim friend who wants to debate the divinity of Jesus. And so both of those could be interesting debates. I don't know if that's something, because you're an atheist channel, I'm assuming technically. And so I don't know if you want to host a debate like that or not. But if you did, maybe I should send them your way instead of trying to make them work around my schedule. What do you think about that?
Oh, I would love that. I mean, like, I can probably find my channel is a small platform, but we can find a bigger platform for them actually too. Like, there are platforms where I could actually probably have a debate and it would be a bigger platform than my own. So,
okay, I'll reach out to them. I have you on Discord now. So I'll stay in communication with you and let you know what we decide about that. Well, thank you so much for stopping by as always, Robin. I appreciate your support.
Yes. Thank you.
Let me bring up Steve. Steve, I want to give you an opportunity to, introduce yourself, talk about any projects you're on. I don't know if you have a channel necessarily, but I see you popping in a lot on Fighting Gnosis. And of course, you're always welcome here. I really enjoy your feedback. I find you to be very intelligent and have some really good pushback on different things we've discussed. So anything you want to mention at all?
Okay. Thank you, Robin. These kinds of topics can often end up devolving into screaming matches. So I really appreciate, and to you, OE, as well, the whole immigration thing. It's a very fraught issue with lots of emotion involved, I think, especially in America, for someone like me who's a couple of degrees removed from it in a different scenario. I probably have a different idea of things. So I appreciate you both being cool with discussing the topic the way we did. I've put my channel, my YouTube channel, my main channel, in the private chat there, in the studio chat. It's called Efilism, EFILISM. And it's basically, the quickest way to describe it, it's critiquing the antinatalist community. There's a lot of problems there with pro-PDF stuff and violence and all that kind of thing, especially after last year's Palm Springs terrorist attack on the IVF clinic. So I document a lot of stuff there. It's not a happy channel, and the antinatalists hate me for it. So good on them. Yeah, you can, and I've also got a Substack. It's just stevegodfrey.substack.com. I do some stuff there as well. That's it. Yeah, look me up on Finding Gnosis. There you go. And but objective ethics. I mean, I'd love to talk with you. I mean, this whole your objective ethics thing, I still can't wrap my head around properly. It seems really idiosyncratic to me the way you approach it. I just
Yeah, we should definitely dive into that. Now that I've had my debate, I'm not holding anything back anymore. I was trying to be a little bit sneaky or secretive because I didn't want to give Mark all the ammunition he needed, but yeah, now that that's over, I'm happy to lay out my argument for that. In fact, I was thinking about doing a whole video on it because I actually have syllogisms for it and everything. I think the argument's really strong. I did not use them in that debate. As I told Robin earlier, I lost that information the day of the debate. I didn't save it, and I thought my autosave was working like it always has, and apparently it wasn't on. And so I closed down my laptop, moved everything over to the table I wanted to sit at during the debate. And when I opened everything up, all my work was gone. So I actually had to do that debate off of old notes from an argument that I actually knew was already broken. So I just went with what I had. And that's no shade on Mark, because Mark did a fantastic job, but he did not get my best effort. And that's unfortunate because the majority of his argument was based on the is-ought problem. And that's not a problem for my position at all. But without having all the notes, I didn't want to just hurt myself even more by trying to give half of the argument from, you know what I mean? So I just went with something old that was at least a complete argument. And yeah, Mark definitely won that, but I think there is a really good response to there's definitely a way to overcome the is-ought problem. That is not a problem for objective morality if you know how to address that. So if you want to have that conversation, I'd love to do that. I probably will do a video on it and actually lay out my syllogism right there on screen so people could just pick it apart as much as they want. And then I'm open to having that talk anytime.
I think that's the way to go. Rather than a discussion off the top of the head. Yeah, do a presentation where you actually detail what your arguments are. That would be more productive, I think.
I subscribe, Steve, to your channel.
Oh yeah, she's subscribed to yours, and I forgot until you said ephilism.
Good on you. See how long you last with that.
No, it's embarrassing because I'd forgotten that you are ephilism. I did find you, and I subscribed to your channel before when I first met you. You told me that, but I'm meeting so many people all over the place that I get easily confused. I forgot. And when you use 4 different names, it doesn't help. You got Youth Dogs and Steve and ephilism and. Jesus Christ.
Well, I prefer Yerf Dogs here because it's like the ephilism channel is kind of like my war paint, and I don't like to throw that around in the wrong
I subscribe to the Finding Gnosis channel.
Yeah, he's a good lad, old DNW. And that's another thing, like
that's not you?
I apologize, sorry, what?
That's not you?
No, that's not me at all. DNW is the guy who runs that. But
okay.
Yeah, I jump on there from time to time as well.
I didn't subscribe to your channel then. What was your channel?
Ephilism. It's in the studio chat.
Oh. And I will put a link to it in the description of this video. It's like
sure. Okay.
EFILISM, right?
That's correct.
Okay, Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually did. Steve, did you happen to see the video I did, Courage Without Fear, addressing the antinatalist position?
I think I did. Yeah, and that's what I was just going to jump into. Yeah, it's interesting listening to people discuss antinatalism. Perhaps we can do that at some time. I mean, I'm no longer an antinatalist, but I know my way around the subject pretty well. So we could have a yak about that at some point. Because I listen to the discussions on Finding Gnosis, and sometimes I kind of wince a little bit, and I go, "Ooh, that's a little bit off."
Yeah, I only based that video off of conversations I'd had with people on his channel. So I don't even know how much they necessarily know about the claim. I mean, that's my first exposure to it. But I have been dealing with some people who are very depressed and considering self-deletion, which is really sad. And so I thought I would put out a video, just basically tried to encourage people to say, hey, the struggle is worth it. I know it sounds like a terrible thing to say because you want to be sympathetic and empathetic to everybody, but there is a reward if you can make it to the end. You know what I mean? To make it to the finish line, then the journey is worth it. But you've got to be able to.
This is a serious problem on the antinatalist side of things. There are people who have taken that step. It's a big problem, and we can talk about that as well. It's
Yeah, I look forward to that conversation. Okay, so I really appreciate having you on. I will get a link to your channel and to Robin's channel. I gotta make a note of all this. Kentucky Atheist. I think that's the only ones I mentioned in this stream. I try to get that.
Robin, what's your channel?
Robin Webster, and I tried to go get it, and then I'm on my computer and I don't know how to share it.
Okay, just Robin Webster, one word, is it?
Yeah, you see that picture right there. That's my avatar,
Okay.
like on the thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but it's not. It's 2 words, but.
Okay, everybody, I just want to wrap this up by thanking Robin for coming on and being willing to get into some of these topics that I don't know a whole lot about when it comes to politics. There was a lot of really good information that she gave me, a lot of good insight, and I really something that I'm going to chew on and think about later and over the next several days probably, because there's a lot of media attention that's being done when it comes to when it comes to immigration in particular, but the whole Trump administration, this has been a very divisive time in America, and it's really scary, because I'm trying to build a platform where we bring people together and respect each other's different opinions and different ideas, work together to see if we can find solutions, but ultimately focus on the humanity in everybody. And this is really the opposite of what I'm seeing in my own country in particular, and also the way that countries deal with the other countries. And I know that we can make this world a better place. I do believe this with every fiber of my being, that we can work together. We can learn to cooperate much more effectively, but it's going to have to start at a core level. We have to start with self-respect, and you cannot have self-respect without respecting other people. It's kind of that if A then B, therefore B is A kind of a thing, right? You need both elements. You've got to have your own self-respect. We want to live a good life. Everybody wants to live a good life. And if we don't have self-respect, we're lacking one of the fundamental things that we need to have in order to live this good life. And in order to respect ourselves, we have to be respectful of other people. And once we fix this problem within ourselves, all the other fucking shit will just literally fade away. Division about religion, non-religion, different religions, politics. And it's not to say that those things can't be still. People can still have their religious beliefs. They can still have political beliefs. You know, we want people to have different opinions. We don't want everybody just agreeing on everything. It's people pushing back on our ideas is actually very important, but it's how we push back on these ideas that I really want to focus on. So I'd like to thank also Yerf Dogs for coming on here. Check out his channel, Ephilism. And I really do think that the antinatalism thing is something we should all be speaking out against, because it does lead to some really dark conclusions. And I want to encourage people to enjoy the journey, to focus on that. You know, that's what Nietzsche said, right? How to overcome nihilism is you have to learn that the value is in the journey itself and in the experiences. Don't get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. And that's the key to finding a true purpose in life. And so I guess with that, I don't have anything else to say other than I do have a song I'm working that Deconverted Man gave to me. So I'm going to eventually figure out some kind of a cool outro maybe for these. But for right now, we're just going to do the old fashioned StreamYard. Thank you so much for checking out the video today.